Shall we start with the continuances, so hopefully nobody's here for something we're not going to do.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take item 7N out of order.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to take item 7N out of order. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 5-0-0.
I would further like to make a motion to take item 7O out of order.
Second.
Are we going to vote to continue
Oh.
before, after we've taken it out of
Mr.
order?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of
Sorry.
March 21st, 2019, as requested by the applicant's attorney in an email dated March 4th, 2019.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of continuance?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained? 5-0-0.
And now I would like to take item 7O out of order.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to take item 7O out of order. This one I'll read. Continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4326, outdoor storage of supplies and equipment incidental to permitted uses, subject to requirements for location, lighting, screening, fencing, cover, and safety precautions with the zoning bylaws. 376 Cambridge Street, The Granite Place, Inc., applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of March 21st, 2019.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. And let me,
Mr. Chairman,
I had messed up earlier. I didn't read the first one we took out of order, and that was the application for approval of a definitive subdivision plan for 108 Muller Road. Edward and Yelena Ivitskaya applicant. That's the one we first continued.
and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take item 7P out of order.
Second.
Moved and seconded, take item 7P out of order. That's a continued public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 61 Center Street, Town of Burlington, applicant.
Mr. Chairman.
All in favor of taking it
Aye.
out of order?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of April 4th, 2019, as requested by the applicant's attorney in an email dated March 4th, 2019.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. Citizens' time, is there anyone here on a matter that is not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, announcements.
First, I might just say, Mr. Chairman, the Herb Chambers companies have asked potentially for continuance based on the absence of a member or two members. But I would recommend, I want to let the public know that we probably will be continuing Herb Chambers, but I would hold it till a little bit
Okay,
later
so
to actually take the
table that
vote.
matter till later in the meeting.
It's already on later in the meeting. I just
Okay.
want to announce to the viewers, it's highly likely it will be continued.
Okay.
Announcements. First, I want to congratulate Josh for holding an excellent municipal vulnerability program workshop on Wednesday. It was from 10 to 2. We had breakfast, we had lunch, we had great time. Some of you attended.
I did.
I don't know if Josh, you want to say a couple words on that?
Yeah, no, so we had 25 to 30 people. We had a great conversation about, what the town what is the town's vulnerability in terms of climate change and kind of what we see as potential issues and problems as we move forward in the future. And we're hoping that some of the, we gathered some great information yesterday, and we hope to include it in the report that we're putting together with our consultant that will probably come out in May or June. There will be one more community workshop, and then there will be a public listening session with the overall results. And I hope to keep the town and the planning board informed of, the next steps moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. It was a well-spent 4 hours. I'm
Yeah.
very glad I was able to attend. Would you say, Ernie, you were there?
Yes, very good job, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also,
Interesting.
some of you may have attended the Community Preservation Act meeting last night. I had to go to Ways and Means last night, so I couldn't stay to that meeting, but I think I heard that Larry Cohen did a very good presentation, and I don't know if any of you want to have a few words.
I've heard Larry's presentation 3 times. I didn't go for this one because I went to Ways and Means also.
I was there. It was very well attended,
Yeah.
and the presentation was excellent. And I think that they're moving forward full steam ahead. It was very well done.
What is the Are they looking to go to September town meeting?
That was something that was discussed last night. The original plan was to go to January 2020 town meeting, but there's a possibility they may try to move forward and bring it to town meeting to at least get a pulse in September.
Yeah, I think January was to set it up for a vote in May,
Right,
so.
Oh, okay.
yes, so that's still up in the air, it's tentative, but the whole thing was exceptionally well done. And well-attended as, too, I
Yeah.
would say. We had
Yeah,
full house.
The room was full.
I
Full
stopped
house,
by
yes.
quick on my way to Ways and
Yeah.
Means. but-
I just want to add one announcement, that daylight savings time takes effect this weekend, so don't forget to set your clocks ahead.
And then the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative Conference is coming up next Saturday, March 16th. We did send notice to the Board of Appeals. I haven't heard if anyone is going, or if
There is a
any.
Board of Appeals member in the back row. Do you know, are any of your members looking to go to that?
We wasn't actually discussed at our hearing. I don't know if anyone mentioned that they were planning on going. I know I'm ready to attend, but
Okay.
So, but if anyone on this board, let us know. And lastly, I think we have a birthday on our planning board, a member that may not be here, but I think one of you wanted to say something about that.
I would like to wish Paul Raymond a very happy 39th birthday.
Again?
The what anniversary was 39?
We miss him and we wish him a very happy birthday, even though he couldn't be with us tonight.
On a less happy note, former Selectman Jack Leahy, who was a selectman back in the 80s, 2 or 3 terms, I forget which, recently passed away.
Jeez, I didn't hear that.
That was in this morning's paper. On another note, for the people who watch this on Verizon, like I have watched meetings the past couple of weeks, it's been difficult to hear. And of course, if you call Verizon to ask them what's going on, they say our calls are higher than normal, which is always normal. You've got a 25 to 40-minute wait, you hang up and you just move on. But I did contact Rob, what's the engineer at BCAD? Zahor or something like that. And he thinks he may have found the problem, and with his connections, he can get through to people at Verizon a lot easier than I can. He thinks he found that. So if you're in Verizon and you're hearing this better tonight, thank Rob Zahor, the engineer at BCAT. I think that's all I have. Legal notices of interest are none, no non-approvals, administrative matters. Public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.9, fast order food establishment of the zoning bylaws, 85 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington, Mass. Cafe Nero Americas, Inc., applicant. If you could sit down, speak into the microphone, and so the folks at home, introduce yourself.
My name is Bruce Kidder, head of construction for Cafe Nero.
Thank you, welcome. Is there somebody else here from Cafe Nero?
Nope.
Okay, he just moved up, he wants to hear better, okay.
Only might be
Staff?
here from Burlington Mall.
I guess I'll join. I was just going to sit in the audience, but I'll sit here. Justin Feldhouse, General Manager of Burlington Mall.
Yes, Justin, if you could choose the microphone so the folks at home can hear you.
Justin Feldhouse,
You need to
General.
pull it closer, please.
I'll try that.
Even though the engineer has fixed it, we still have to
Third time.
use the microphones correctly in order for the folks at home to hear us.
Justin Feldhouse, General Manager of
Okay,
Burlington Mall.
thank you, welcome also.
Thank you.
Do you want to start, or do you want to?
I would offer to the applicant to give us a description of where Cafe Nero is going to be located, what their seating is, that it's the second location at the mall, and just if you want to give a brief introduction of
Okay. So
that, and then I'll weigh in.
we're taking a space in the old Sears Tire Center, that they tore it down, built a new space. We got a small space there. We have 57 seats, I believe. 117 seats altogether. We have 56 inside, 5 employees, and 56 outside seating. So 117 seats altogether. I don't know if you guys are familiar with
My
Cafe
math doesn't work with
Yeah.
56 and 56 making 117.
117 actual. He didn't include
Okay, so there's one in the doorway or something?
No, he didn't include the employees, the kitchen included.
Got seats in the kitchen.
Seats.
You guys- You're not gonna let them
56
sit down
and
while
50.
they're working, are you?
Yeah, 56 and 56 is 112, and you said 117.
Oh, plus 5 in the kitchen, yeah, no, that's right.
not seats.
56 seats in the dining area, 5 in the kitchen for employees working, 5, it's actual count.
Okay, I think we only count patron seats.
Counting chairs.
Oh, just patrons?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there's 56
Inside.
seasonal outside and 56 permanent inside.
Right.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
So it's gonna be 56 open space out, not covered on the walkway outside?
Yeah, well, there won't be a cover over the walkway, yeah, but there'll be 56, there's a pretty wide walkway going in there. So,
Where in the building is it?
Is that, the-
It's the northeast corner of the former Suez Auto.
so the
building.
corner closest to the driveway intersection?
So that's northeast, okay.
That's Burlington.
This is northeast corner, and this is north that way.
I'll send it around, I just wanted to put a, sorry, real quick.
Oh, actually,
How many square feet are you going to be taking up?
Total square footage.
It's 3,065 square feet.
Okay.
How big is the inside? How big is the inside location? Just trying to get a,
Approximately 2,500 off the top of my head, but I'm not sure.
Normal space, we usually take about a 2,500 square foot interior.
so this one is 35 interior? Or is
3,000,
that,
3 even, or 3 with 65, 3,065.
so 3,000 square feet inside,
Yeah.
not including the outside space, yeah.
for those who had asked the question about which tenant space, if you just look at the screen, it's just this corner right here,
Oh, that corner.
this corner.
Yeah, so the last one we approved was in this corner.
All right.
So we have reviewed the application. They're still far under the seat count that we evaluated in all of the impact studies. We don't have an issue with the proposal. Their outdoor seating, we have conditioned to make sure it's within the area that we've already permitted for the areas of outdoor seating. We've had ongoing discussions, as all of you know, with Simon and their contractors, just to ensure that the overall site plan is continuing to develop and the conditions are met. That doesn't necessarily affect Cafe Nero. I just wanted to give you an update, and we will be meeting with the full team and all the departments in a few weeks to discuss just kind of where we are, updates, and just kind of the future over the next couple of months as to the completion of the TBA building, as well as the beginning of this year's renovation, so.
So this has outside seating where there's head-in parking.
Yes.
The
There are,
detailed plan gives all the bollards there
There are-
and the
there
curb
are
height
several
and all that.
bollards.
There are bollards all the way across the front of where you're seeing that, the head-in parking.
And the specs on those are sufficient to
Yes.
protect patrons sitting there if a large pickup truck decides to
yep.
Yes.
go in there?
Yes,
Okay.
we have those conditioned here as well as in the original site plan.
The site plan shows them, you might not see it, Jack, but there's these little black dots in front of every just one or two in front of every single parking space.
Yeah, I can see them here. I just want to make sure you guys have checked the specs on them, that they are going to be sufficient, because
Yep.
some of the vehicles have rather large tires, and they have no problem getting over curbs and knocking over small bollards.
Yeah, they're not small. They're just-
Okay, we have department reports. Carol?
Inspector Buildings, no objection. DPW is favorable with conditions, which are
They're typical-
boilerplate.
Yeah, with sewer flow
So,
and
okay.
sewer water flow, I&I, all that stuff.
Fire Department approval is
Submitted.
as submitted, and Board of Health favorable with conditions, which are the standard.
Which are standard, mostly food permit condition?
All righty. All righty. Joe, you have anything you want to?
Just, actually, so there going to be bollards, is there going to be any screening of any,
We're gonna put
So-
fencing and planters up to kind of denote our space.
some planters, no, like, you will, in other words, you'll be looking right in from Mall Road, you'll be able to see right inside, or is there going to be any kind
No,
of?
the fence will be 42 inches tall, the planters will be about the same, they're normally about 6 feet long. And you have 2 or 3 sections of fence, a section of planters, 2 or 3 sections of fence, a section of planters. And that'll be the perimeter around our space.
I'm wondering if, is there any possibility of getting any kind of trees or anything in there, or something that, I'd like to, from my perspective, we're gonna be putting a building there, and we're gonna be looking at a hot top, if we can dress it up a little bit from, view from the Mall Road, because it's gonna be fairly close to the Mall Road. My preference would be if we could have some sort of, maybe some ornamental trees or something going around there.
I mean, that would be up to Simon, they'd probably have to redesign their parking sidewalk.
I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of room for trees there, but I think, if you were to look at the Cafe Nero that's inside the mall, I think they did a really great job. Really, sort of the cosmetics of it. And so I think if you look at that, I think you're going to get a similar product out there. I don't think this is going to be, a bleak building from Mall Road. I think this is an attractive green space with the seating area.
So this is our patio design.
How many square feet in the patio?
See, like, these all represent planters right here. So these would be 2 large shrubs as you walked in, and these would be,
So, where's the Mall Road from here?
I think the mall where you come around.
Is it this corner, or?
This is north, so that's north right there.
I think Mall Road, you're sitting in Mall Road, Joe.
I'm sitting in the Mall Road, yep,
Yeah.
right, you're right, this is Mall Road, yep, okay.
So, I mean, these, I don't know if you've ever seen our planters. The one in Burlington Mall, we didn't have any, but a lot of our spaces, and they're anywhere from 4 feet to 5 feet long, 42 inches tall. We put good-sized plants, and if the mall or wherever we are allows it, we'll do the same during the winter. We'll dress them in the winter so that there's some sort of greenery there year-round. I mean, we do, you're gonna have, this dotted line represents the awning that's gonna go all the way around. So you're gonna have some spots to sit, if it's misty and rainy, but not,
This dotted line is the awning.
that dotted line is the awning,
Yeah, and what's this outside dotted line?
The outside dotted line is the seating way, and that is also to denote the pathway, the egress path.
Yeah, okay.
So the idea of trees, Joe, if they're over against closer to Mall Road, have we determined whether the sidewalk is going to be on that side or the other side? Where are we on the sidewalk with talking the mall?
We don't have a final sidewalk plan, they are designing it to be on that side of.
They're designing it on this side, on the mall side,
See
okay.
what you got here
On the
for
mall.
sidewalk, right? You've got,
No, I'm talking about sidewalk along Mall Road.
He does-
okay.
he-
Yeah, they may have some, but our sidewalk, we've only got 5'8"
Yeah.
inches.
If the sidewalk is not going to be here on the other side, there may be a place to put trees that Joe was
What
talking
is it,
about.
the walkway
Sidewalk
around
is going to
here?
be on the,
So there's
On
gonna
the
be
mall
another-
side.
correct.
So
There'll
that
be another walkway out here for
limits the amount of
pedestrians,
available,
and you want to give them. what's
Dirty
the-
area to
5
plant.
foot? I don't know, what's the Burlington, 5 foot?
Well, so the ADA is, I think is, minimum is probably 4, but 5 is normal, I
So
think.
if you go and you put a tree in here, and you've seen the cutouts, so those are 3 by 3, by the time you do that, there's nothing,
People can't get by.
no
yeah.
one's gonna be able to get by there.
Okay,
We'll
so
also probably hang plants along here, we do a pretty nice job, I mean, if you've ever been any other locations in the city.
Yeah,
we spend
I haven't
thousands of
actually.
dollars on.
No, the
plantings.
beautiful, the one inside is beautiful, it's, done a nice job in there. It just, my feeling is if we can, as much as possible with this new building over here, just given the fact that we're looking at so much, I mean, as it stands, we've never really addressed any kind of, it has nothing to do with you in
Yeah,
particular,
do you
but,
want this?
sure, that'd be great. Maybe they can, I mean, we've never really addressed any internal trees within these lots, and all we look at is a sea of pavement when we're going by here, and I think, maybe an opportunity to take advantage a little bit and get some,
As part of our overall development plan, For this end of the building, we will be upgrading the landscaping, so that I think we will be addressing your concern during that time.
Define upgrading,
New plants,
not more,
more.
more, okay.
Yes.
And I know, I don't recall perfectly, but I know that they have trees going down both sides of the new drive,
Right.
the old Sears Drive with the
Right.
new drive.
I don't
There's
have the
trees that,
Landscaping plan on me,
right,
obviously, but I know
but
that
there
there
are
are
tree
new
plantings that go all the way
grasses
down.
and plants and bushes of all kinds that are going to be surrounding the area.
Would you be able to get a copy of that landscape plan to
Sure.
staff?
we have it, it's part of
Okay.
the
Kind of
site
look for
plan.
it right now. Hold on.
Do you have any measurements as to how many square feet the outside seating area is? Because it's going to be captive if it's fencing in, it's not public space.
So we have, in the site plan, we have approved the outline of those patios for the final inside designed to be designed as the different tenants come through.
1,719 square feet on here, okay.
They need to stay within that line that's permitted in the site plan to ensure that there's enough travel way on
Okay.
the other side, outside of their patio. If they don't, they need to come in for a minor
Do you have a
engineering
copy of
change.
this plan that shows 1,719 square feet of the seating area?
I don't have it as
So-
detailed, but
You should take that.
there's a requirement
Yeah.
that they need to be within that dotted line. If
Okay,
they're
this-
not,
This
they
will
need
help
to-
you know whether they plan to be within it.
So our architect has it on our plans on the front page. It's 1,755 square feet is what he came out with.
Okay, that's
That says
1,719. Oh, there.
1,719.
19, is that our plan?
Yes, that's what
That's
you
the
just
plan
left.
that you just handed to
So
Joe.
his code summary is slightly off than what his,
But
Okay.
regardless, you must be within the original
hashed
dotted
area,
line of the original plan.
And as we're
So
building the
that's-
sidewalk, we're leaving out the area that they're required to be in, so that they can put their finishes in there. And so there'll be no.
Oh, they're giving it its own surface treatment?
They'll have pavers, I believe. Pavers on your patio.
no, I think on the patio, we'll do concrete.
Okay,
It's going to be different surface than what we're installing.
okay.
Right. So if you see there's a different pattern, there's a sidewalk pattern and then kind of a hatch toward the inside,
Yep.
they need to be within that line for their full patio.
So the patio is going to just be concrete?
Yeah.
Anything further, Joe?
I mean, this is going to be an opportunity to, like I said, to do it right or to do it wrong. And I feel like I was of the same belief that, or at least hopes that there'd be pavers out there and we'd be looking at some trees and some things that, as you're driving by, it's going to make a big impact on visually of this whole project, as from Mall Road. And that's really what, we forced trees, down the district. We forced them to put trees all the way down that area in walkways and things like that, brick walkways. And I feel like we need to, this needs to be stepped up just a little bit.
Were you showing trees there?
Yeah,
Kristen?
So,
no, just go
Looking
back
at
to,
concrete, a big concrete patio and no trees and.
go back there, yeah.
Okay. Are those trees there, those circles?
yes,
Yes.
So there's one at the corner in an island and one down the end of that walkway?
Yes.
yeah, there's several.
We're-
So if you look at, yeah,
That's a
Right.
tree?
That's.
That's a tree?
Yep.
When you say tree, what?
It's a tree.
What kind of tree?
it's hard to, I'd have to get into the nitty gritty details of it.
It's not a shrub, it's an actual
Yes,
tree.
thank you.
That's,
Yeah, we'll find the planting list while you're moving along.
I mean, to me, if it's being done to the standard of the inside, I don't think they would be doing just concrete, concrete patio. I mean, that's done beautifully, flooring, everything on the inside. I think
That's going to be open to the weather in the wintertime.
no, I'm not asking for
Yeah.
wood flooring, I'm saying
Yeah.
pavers would be beautiful, that would be, it would make the whole project, with pavers and trees would make the whole project a whole different project. I mean, it's a lot of outdoor seating, so it's gonna be a big area. 56 seats are a lot of seating.
Is that something you'd be willing to consider?
It would have to obviously be ADA compliant, whatever we put there for surface. So I don't know what,
And this is,
Yeah,
if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that this is sort of brand related, and that this is a
Cement?
similar condition at all of your other Cafe Neros that have outdoor patios?
yeah, we don't actually have most of our outdoor patios are on city sidewalk in the city. You know, we pay rent to be there, and we have to take it up in the fall. So this would get taken up in the fall, and then you're gonna see the clear difference, you know, where the pavers stop and the concrete starts. We don't normally keep our patios up year round. It's just the New England winters just beat them up, you know?
So then why, if you're taking your patio up in the winter, why isn't it part of the overall building's sidewalk?
Does that mean you take the planters away and the fence
Everything
away?
would go away.
Right.
So you go storage somewhere with that?
So we take, what we normally do is we take, so right now, there's a 4 or 5 foot pedestrian easeway all the way around our space. When winter comes, and some of the landlords, I haven't read the Simon rules and regulations on the wintertime, but a lot of landlords, even when we're on their space in the wintertime, they own the snow removal, so they say, hey, look, you gotta take your furniture up, you gotta take your fencing out, and we'll take our planters and and pull them against the wall all the way around and try to plant them with greenery for the winter, so there's something out there that says we're here, we're alive, something's going on here, not just, so it doesn't look like a dead space.
Actually, my question was to you, is if the side, where their patio is, why isn't that part of the actual buildings?
Layout.
Why isn't, right, the sidewalk part of it's your sidewalk, they're just using it?
The sidewalk is ours, but we've left out a portion of the sidewalk, a portion of that area, let's just say, for them to do what they want with their patio.
Are you leasing that sidewalk space to them?
is to them. That's their space.
So
If
it's,
you're leaving that out for us to pour.
Okay. now,
The entrance to the mall is all pavers, right?
Because I think it would look better if it was all the same material as the
I've got a
other
question to
sidewalk.
staff here. The overall site plan, that sidewalk was not part of the gross leasable space that was permitted, and now they're leasing it.
Still reading through everything. I think that's.
What's the concern?
The mall manager indicated that they are leasing a portion of that sidewalk that they own to Cafe Nero.
Okay.
Was that permitted space that they're leasing part of the gross leasable space on the site permit, or was it considered sidewalk?
It wasn't considered sidewalk, it was
It was
considered
not.
patio. And when you get into the leasable space versus not leasable space versus how much space they have at the mall, if you remember that very long exercise of
Yep.
how big is the mall, that we went through, has to do with the interior square footage of the mall and for
this
the
was not
calculation
included.
purposes.
So this is not interior square footage
For
of the
all the
mall?
calculations we needed to do, to know what's the interior before and after, it doesn't matter if the patio is leased or not leased. What we needed was the interior square footage of the mall.
And we
When we
needed
get
that
into the
interior
seat
space
count-
for what purposes? Because then they
Interior
base
space-
their parking and
Parking is
traffic
based
and all
on
that
Right,
on
but it's
that.
all based on seat count, and we included the seat count for the patio seats as well as the interior space.
For parking, okay.
Well, right, but you have parking, building to ground area, you have a bunch of different calculations.
Correct.
Whereas seats and patio are not necessarily building to ground, because the patio is not considered within the building. But my point is, I don't, it doesn't concern me that they're leasing the patio, so long as the seat count is included in the total seat count that we've evaluated the impacts for, which it is.
Well, the total space doing business is bigger than the footprint of the buildings. And we calculate certain things based upon the
Footprint.
footprint
We asked what the square footage was. of
The
whole
gross
building.
lease, the gross square foot of the building.
Right.
Now, if you're using,
Right.
you know,
But I mean, if it was
this
a
goes back
retail
to years
store-
ago when the Burlington Mall, the mall part was wide open, and then one Christmas, all the push carts show, and then they went away, and then the next year, the push carts came, and they never went away. So they increased their retail space there.
Right, and we had that conversation, if you
Yeah,
remember, when
okay,
we
so-
asked for square footage for push
So
carts.
I'm trying to determine
But
what they're
here-
doing. Are they
here-
within the specs of the permit
Here,
we gave them?
we've included the seating and the outdoor seating
Okay.
within the whole evaluation of impact. If this was a retail store and they had outdoor displays,
Displays.
then, yeah, I mean, then maybe we would have to reevaluate that.
Okay.
But for this, for the restaurant use, based on the impact being seats, they've been included.
Kristen, let me ask you a question, because I remember a lot of conversation about the comparison between the square footage that existed prior to the building being taken down and the square footage after the new one was going up. Was that square footage when we got the comparison, did that include the patio?
The square footage comparison included interior space divided in all the different categories
Right.
of uses that existed before and proposed, and as well as included the seats before.
It did,
And then
but the
future.
square footage that we were given the comparison on, my understanding was square footage of interior space. It had nothing to do with patios.
It was.
It was interior space, right. So this is additional space, right?
This is, right, but it's additional seats
Oh, it's-
in the
it's-
additional
it's-
space.
Let's not mix up
Space where
apples and
business is
oranges.
conducted.
Right, it's, right. We asked, it's additional square footage from what we were given a comparison of.
Well, it's the same square footage. The building hasn't changed, the layout hasn't changed, it's still the same. The patio was shown on all those original plans as well.
Right, but when we ask about square footage, there's a reason why we ask about a comparison of the old square footage to the new square footage, because we
Right.
want to see what kind of generation of business is going to be done there, and we want a comparison about it, and the comparison was not, it was given the building footprint, it wasn't the
Right.
patio, so.
One of the major
it's-
question
this
was
is-
this kind of hallways versus not hallway, and, with the mall
Right.
configuration,
Which is fine,
getting into all
I'm,
those.
I'm one who, I feel like this gives a whole, when you have outdoor seating and you have these types, it's more of an inviting feel, it's more of a, people want to walk around, they want to use it a little bit more. I feel like it's a plus all around, but I feel like it's a plus all around when it's done a certain way and not when it's a concrete patio. So that's why my feeling, I feel fairly strongly that it should be a paving block. And I think you have paving block when you walk into the main buildings, right? I mean, the main entrances of the mall are paving block, right?
On one side of them.
Yeah, so they're ADA compliant, you couldn't put anything out there that wasn't ADA compliant, so a paving block, as long as it's a flat paving block, which is a normal paving block that you would use in these situations, would be ADA compliant. But again, we're now looking at space that's being used that wasn't, there were a lot of questions about comparisons, and they were talking about, oh, well, that's basement space, or that's tires being stored there, and this was not contemplated in any of that. So it's kind of additional square footage that we're looking at here, which is fine. But for that reason, I feel like, if it's gonna be done on the outside, it should be done the right way.
Okay.
To me, it's bigger than what they initially said it was going to be.
It is, exactly,
And,
that's exactly right.
We're not supposed to remember that far back, I
Well,
guess.
We only asked 1,000 questions, we should have, it was at 1,001,
1,001,
we
we
would've
didn't
gotten that
answer.
answer, I think.
All right. Anything further, Joe? Okay, Barbara?
I don't have any questions, but I would agree with Joe that it would be nicer to have this be pavers.
I also feel it would be better if it were pavers, but I also think that is each restaurant going to have a patio? And are all the patios going to be different?
That would be weird.
I think it should all be the same, all around. And their fences and things could be different to set them apart, but I think the base should all be the same I can't,
But if it's the same as the sidewalk, that's gonna be concrete.
Exactly.
But if you have the, if the, sorry, if the sidewalk is concrete and the patio is pavers, we could just require that the next restaurant that comes in, their pavers would have to match these pavers, so you don't have a bunch of different looking pavers all the way around.
right. That's, I'm all set.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I scroll through my internet here on Cafe Nero pictures, a lot of times where they separate the sidewalk to their outdoor seating, there are Cafe Nero signs on the side of their planters. So maybe we can write that into the decision that the planters themselves don't have signage on them.
Yes, we, in the signage code, any signage on umbrellas or planters would be considered additional signs.
Yeah, they're like barriers and
Yeah.
And the other thing is there is the condition here about if there's any TVs outside, are they facing the other way? Is that in there as well?
I think it
Missing it.
is, to be honest.
That's in there, right?
If it's not, it will be.
I just asked Josh that, is it in there? If not, it should be. So-
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think everybody said everything that I was going to say.
I didn't say anything, I just asked a question.
Well, that started the whole thing, Jack. Thank you.
Have the questions or issues raised been satisfied by all? Do we continue, or do we move?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on if the applicant is willing to do pavers.
And the electronic signing and no electronic signing.
I think that's in the,
That's in there.
that's in the conditions, yeah.
No temporary signs, no electronic
Okay.
signs, meeting signs.
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience here to speak on this matter suddenly decided they'd like to? Okay, nobody in the public looking to speak on this, all right?
So what are we doing? Are we going to approve this with pavers?
Oh, I don't know. What's the applicant's preference
Really
here?
not my decision. If you're saying, hey, Cafe Nero, pick a paver and tell everybody else in that whole place to pick the same paver,
I think it should be the mall should pick the,
I mean, if you really want pavers, a lot of these patios are gonna come down in the wintertime, they're not gonna be up. So if you have pavers inside every patio area, and then you pull your fence in the winter, you're gonna have a clear denoted line that's gonna look a little odd.
I think it's also important to allow that the restaurants or the cafes or whoever it may be that goes there that has the patios to have the brands that they want.
I don't think the
In particular,
flooring,
look.
people's brands don't extend to their flooring,
Oh,
outdoor
absolutely.
flooring.
I'd have to
Indoor
disagree.
flooring, yes, but outdoor
Every
flooring,
single thing we do, every single thing.
your outdoor flooring is the same, but you're on sidewalks.
You would, yeah, believe me, if my designer had his way, there would be European cobblestone everywhere, anywhere that we could
That would be
outside.
ADA compliant, so.
Close ADA compliant, but
I do think that you could allow other restaurants, Cafe Nero and other restaurants to brand their areas
With their
and still
fence and
have
their
the
planters.
same pavers as each other, with planters, with fencing, with signage, with their awnings and their design elements. And I think that if the pavers are similar around the building, that's probably not going to be prohibitive.
Since it was going to be concrete anyways.
Exactly.
Well, that's right, I mean, that can't be that can't be your spec, concrete patios, right? I mean, that's not really anybody's spec, that's not really even a design. It's just a very,
That's the
actually,
same thing
in
that
some
they
of
have
our
at Crest.
locations, we do use concrete tiles. It's sort of an industrial look that we do use at some locations.
So do you,
what do you use?
Cafe Nero and the mall want to discuss this and let us know what the decision is? And is that something, I don't expect that's something you could decide tonight, so we can
I mean,
continue it?
listen, I don't have an issue, putting pavers down. I'm only looking at it from a broader perspective that if you want to try to get everyone having the same pavers, everyone's going to want something different.
And I'm not necessarily,
We were just here about a month ago or so for Kava Nets, who also just went through this special permit process, and I can't recall what it is that they put down in that area. My guess is it's some kind of paver as well, but,
I don't know, do
Cafe
you-
Nero
This
wants to put
conversation
down a
didn't come out
paver.
from you.
What I'd suggest is that maybe we have this discussion each time a restaurant comes in and we discuss what that is, instead of blanketing that everybody has to use the same thing.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, no offense to Cafe Nero, but Cafe Nero is going to move in, and hopefully it will do fantastically well and never leave. But if they do, you'll rent that space to another restaurant or cafe, and they're not going to tear up the patio and put their own patio pavers down.
They may.
Not likely. I mean, and if you have the same patio pavers for every outdoor seating area around this building, then they'll stay the same. And it will look nice. And I think it's highly unlikely you're going to have a restaurant come to you and they want to move in and say, oh, wait a minute, no, if I have to have gray pavers, I'm not coming. That's not going to happen.
Respectfully, I have to disagree.
You think they would not come into the space because they can't have their own pavers?
They would change the pavers if it was appropriate for their brands. We have people who come into the mall all the time who come in for 3 months and they'll, strip the whole space out just to change it so that it looks appropriate for their brands.
I think it's
That includes
different when it's
floors,
outdoor
storefronts.
paving.
Right, the
It's
indoors.
this, we have restaurants in town that do the same thing.
This is different because it's one building that's having multiple restaurants all the way around it. So it is a little bit different than other restaurants that come to us that are almost always,
But we have to look at it, though, as an individual space. Because that particular restaurant, whether it's on a street front somewhere else, or within the mall, or with an exterior facade at the mall, it still needs to be appropriate for their brand standards.
so when you, for the other part of the mall where the old Sears building used to be, where you're going to have a bunch of smaller vendors, are you planning on having different surfaces outside each of those stores? They're each going to choose their own surfaces on the floors, on the ground?
We're only talking about patio areas at this point.
Well, there's going to be restaurants in that area, they might all have patios. I think it just might look messy if you have all these different kinds of patios all over the
It's in our
place.
interest not to allow it to look messy and to have some sort of cohesive design to it, and
Yes,
we are reviewing
exactly.
that, and I
That's what we're
understand
looking
that.
for.
That's what
What
would,
I'm asking the board to consider is to allow us to make that decision. I think if you look at the mall, I think we've done a pretty good job with what we do.
I think we're very amenable to the idea of you choosing the pavers that everyone will use.
And they don't necessarily have to be the same, right? Is that?
Well, they should be
Well, that's.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
they
what I'm
should be
looking-
complementary.
Complementary
They should
or
be
coordinated,
complementary,
yeah.
And I would imagine that if you picked them, you're going to make sure they're complementary. If you're going to,
so that somebody doesn't have bright red and somebody has bright green,
It'd be good for Christmas.
Well, but you,
Hey,
well,
what's the pleasure, at this point, nobody in the audience wants to speak, we've all spoken, I need a motion, and whether it's to continue or to approve or whatever, we've got a full agenda, I don't want to spend any more time discussing pavers, so tell us what you want.
I would suggest that we write it up that they have pavers and that they, in coordination with the people at the mall, choose what those pavers should be, with the mall understanding that the next time you come back to us with another restaurant in this same building, we're going to expect you to choose either the same paver or something that's complementary.
Is that a motion you want written into the conditions?
Yes.
Is there a second?
second.
So it's moved and seconded to add that Barbara's suggestion to the conditions. All in favor?
can I
Opposed?
ask a question? Just
Sure.
is there language that can be more, that we have some sort of review on it?
Sure, if you,
Because it's going to be
We don't have design review.
well, the fact is, it's going to be visual from the outside. and-
Someday, somebody with enough dollars is going to challenge that decision.
Yep.
It's not going to
Okay,
hold
Ernie,
up.
we'll leave it up to them instead of
No,
you.
no, I'm not saying that, Joe. I'm just saying.
Right.
I don't-
So,
no,
so the point is,
there's a motion, and it's been seconded, but Joe, you're suggesting amending that motion?
no, I like the way she's worded it, but I'd like them to, if we want to just put in there complimentary and that it gets, it's their full choice, but the fact is, it's still going to have to come before us. I mean, any change is going to
Each
have to
one is going to come
us.
before us, that's correct.
I guess the difference is this, and Ernie, the difference here is that when we were given, every answer that we were given and every question we asked to this point in time, we were never told there was going to be additional square footage that was going to be used.
Okay.
So we're looking at something different here.
But the
So the point is, And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. Maybe everyone else isn't, but the fact is, I'm okay with that. I just want some givebacks as well. You know, when we're told this is gonna be the square footage and that changes, you know, it's not, we don't have to allow it either.
Can I answer that?
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
The only way the additional square footage really applies to what we're doing here is the fact that it contains number of seats. Other than that, what's the big deal? It's not retail, it's just additional seating. Whether
It's additional rental space.
Okay, so say they double the number of
It's
seats. in-
additional rental space, like anything else, Ernie.
Let
Whether it's covered or
let me
it's not
jump in
covered,
here and ask.
additional rental space.
Let me jump in here and ask staff a question. When we got their traffic studies, and they based it upon ITE standards, based upon what they told us the existing square footage of the tire, battery, and auto building was, did they predict traffic based upon square footage of the proposed building, or seats, or both?
Well, they can't base it on seats because we
knew
don't know
how
what the
many.
seats are.
Joe, let me finish. We knew how many outside seats there were going to be as part of the site plan.
There's a number in this study that has the amount of seats total within this building as well as the Sears. And when I mentioned,
All right.
when I first said, we don't have any issues, and the number of seats has not yet reached that amount.
Okay,
That's
so
what I was referring to as,
With each restaurant that comes
Impact
in,
review.
they use up a certain number of
Right.
seats.
That's it.
If
yes.
they plan 8 restaurants and 7 use all the seats, they're going to have to put a retail store in that
Right.
8th space,
Exactly.
not a restaurant.
Then they need to
Or
come back and,
Okay.
ask for more seats.
So there's a finite number of seats that were approved.
That's right.
This doesn't exceed them. Okay.
yeah, so when we do the review, we look at, okay, this was the total impact of this project, so, I don't know, 500 seats, there's more than 500, but X number of seats, and
Yep.
then these are 112, and the Calva was,
So-
so we're, you know,
But I heard you say we use square footage and seats.
well, because for the retail spaces, we're using square footage. For
Right.
the seats, we're using
Right.
seats. For restaurants, we're using seats.
Right.
So it's both.
Okay.
Okay, but, so the point is, the retail, if it's fully built out, the retail, you're adding additional square footage to the retail, or to the,
It's not
the restaurant.
it's a restaurant as a retail anyway, right? It's not a retail use?
Not in
The
our,
way we calculate the impact for a restaurant is seats.
Okay,
That's the unit of measure. For the retail,
Okay.
storage, office,
footage.
it's square footage.
okay.
So that's why I was mentioning, if this was retail and all of a sudden they were selling stuff outside, that would be a question we'd have to ask.
So how come how come that was never answered that way when we asked those questions originally? How much
Because all
square
of the
footage is gonna be? how much
Patio
square
areas
footage?
were always proposed to be restaurants and included the seat
I
count.
get it, but the fact is, when we ask a question and we get a certain square footage because we're looking at a comparison, then we're given a certain square footage, that's the square footage we're given. Why were we not told, but they can double that if they want to put restaurants in there? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you're still looking at we're looking at an apples-to-apples comparison, and that's what we tried to do when this whole process was going on, right? We said, the square footage that exists in the Sears Auto Building is such and such.
Right.
What's the new square footage going to be? Nobody at that point said, well, there's going to be this much square footage, but we could add seats out of here, and if half the store, these are restaurants, then we can add, nobody went through that whole thing. We asked what the square footage was, and we were told what the square footage of the new one was going to be. And that's what we were
Square footage
comparing.
overall and the number of seats within the
That's not
TBA.
what we were told. We were told what the square footage difference
Well,
was.
anyway, I think the point that Joe is making is, this is additional square footage, although not additional seats, and therefore, we feel justified in asking that you do this in pavers, because it's sort of a give and take. Is that, am I?
Well, let me
reading
ask you the next
correctly?
question.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying, but if I could just say that this is the exact same plan that we presented and had approved through our process as we're presenting right now in terms of just size and patio, seating, et cetera. Nothing has changed.
Nothing's changed from what?
the initial plan showed patios.
Yes.
initial-
Yes,
Yep.
that's what I keep
Yep.
referring to, that there's that dotted line, the
The
line of
initial plan
patios.
did show
That was
patios?
permanent.
Or our sign.
Everything has been permanent.
So what are they asking for us to do?
And that,
If everything is allowed and we don't have any
Right
say,
now
what are we
is
asking
the
for?
plan.
Well, we special permit for a
The site
restaurant, Joe.
plan that we
Okay,
approved.
well, then you need a special permit. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is everything is allowed by right, and we don't have any say. If we have say,
We
then
don't have design review.
Okay, but we have the ability to say no, don't we?
We do.
Right, but it
Okay.
sounds
They have a
like,
good reason for
it
saying
sounds
I
like
don't
you're
want to say no,
amenable.
Ernie.
I
So
don't want-
don't go down that road. That's not what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, could I?
What I'm saying is, we would like to have it,
Clarify my position.
Joe is speaking. If you want to jump in and debate him, good luck.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay, so then don't jump in. Ask me to speak.
May I speak?
Go ahead, you can go.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I, as much as anybody else, would like to see a very nice material under the patio, but I don't feel it is my position or job or duty serving on this board to dictate whether it be light gray or purple or green or whatever.
I'm not dictating.
That is not, well, you're saying you're going to refuse the permit.
I did?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
No, I didn't hear him say that. He
I didn't
just
say
said he
that at
could.
all.
He could. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
That is his right.
That's all I wanted to say. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure, that would be refreshing.
I would like to know if the applicant is amenable to the change that I requested, which is that the patio would be pavers chosen by the two of you together, and that when the next restaurant comes before us, we're going to require that you choose either the same or a complementary paver.
Do you need time to think about that? Would
Cafe
you
Nero
like us to
doesn't have any
continue?
problems putting pavers down.
But the gentleman from
If
the
you
mall
need
is...
time to discuss it, you can come back. You don't have to make this decision tonight.
Understood. I think we would be amenable to something complementary.
Right, that's what I was saying. Either the same, if you choose the same, or complementary, so that they look like they go together.
So are you saying to do it on the entire sidewalk or just within the?
No,
just
what-
the
We're just
patio
talking
area?
about your patio.
So you know what that's going to look like
I
in the
understand,
wintertime?
yes.
Okay.
I don't know what's going to look like in the wintertime. Could you tell
It
me?
just means the patio is going to look different, it will be a different surface material than the sidewalk.
It will still be level, and a wheelchair can still go
Yes.
from
See a
one
concrete, you see
transition.
a 5-foot section of concrete, and there'll be a section of pavers butting up to it, and you'll see a clear line.
That's where the patio is.
Be more defined.
Okay, thank you.
The patio will be defined from the
Yes.
rest of the, will be a definitive line from the patio to the rest of the walkway, right?
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that.
So, it sounds like the construction chief for Cafe Nero he's willing to do it. Sounds like the mall is saying, yeah, okay. Am I reading the tea leaves correctly here?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
so, do we have a motion?
Your motion to
Do
close
you
the
have
public
those
hearing.
conditions written in, Kristen? Okay. Do we have a
Motion to
motion?
close the public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500 to close the public hearing. 600, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of Cafe Nero America, Inc. for the special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.6.9, fast order food establishments of the zoning bylaws to permit a fast order food establishment at 85 Middlesex Turnpike, Burlington Mall, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached as amended.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Application for approval of a special, this is item B, public hearing. Application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.6.9, fast order food establishment of the zoning bylaws, 68 to 1-110 Burlington Mall Road, Cookie Monster Company applicant. This is over the linear site across from Mall Road.
Mr. Chairman, I put up some photos of our current storefront, and the design of this storefront will have a similar finish and color
Who are you replacing over there?
We can share.
Old Scott trade unit.
Oh, okay.
All righty. So if you could introduce yourselves for the record and use the microphone so the folks at home know who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. My name is Lauren Rogers, and I'm with Linear Retail.
Melissa Gale with Cookie Monster.
I'm her husband, Scott Lindeman with the Cookie Monster.
Okay, thank you all, welcome. Tell us what you'd like to do.
So Cookie Monster is taking 1,329 square feet, a portion of the old Scott Trade space. Scott Trade is towards the Cabot House end of our shopping center, the opposite end of Chipotle, next to FedEx. Their plan will have 14 interior seats and 4 exterior seats, and I'll let them tell you a little bit about their business.
We are a husband and wife team out of Danvers, Massachusetts. We started Cookie Monster Company about 8 years ago with one truck in the city of Boston. And then we built another truck, and then we built a retail bakery up in Danvers that is our commissary for all of our trucks. And Burlington's near and dear. I spent 8 years at the Starbucks right next to Scott Trade. Had all of our kids there, had some dinners there, and a lot of time. And when I left there is when we went and opened the Cookie Monster. So we thought it would be nice to come back to the town that we got to know.
But your trucks will still be commissaried out of Danvers,
Danvers.
not here.
Yeah.
You'll be making everything on site here, not bringing it in from Danvers?
We will mix for consistency in Danvers, and we will bring it and bake it off down here. We still want the quality control, the integrity of the product in Danvers.
Can you talk
All
about
right.
your product?
I did put a couple of pictures of the product.
For the public.
So these are really, they're all my mom's scratch recipes. Everything, she made. We have 4 kids. I'm one of 4 kids. My mom made these for us growing up. When I left Starbucks, Scott was Big Dig Construction, and he was laid off, and I stopped working for Starbucks, and we said, what should we do? And I said, why don't you build me a truck?
Yeah, she had always brought cookies to parties, bar mitzvahs, and everybody would always say, oh, you should sell these cookies, and then finally, she started the company. It was her idea to get the Cookie Monster thing going. And
He built me a truck, and that was kind of it.
Appropriate name for trucks in Boston.
Yes.
Cookie Monster, very nice. That name didn't hurt your business.
no, it's a good hook. The name's a great hook. That was her idea too, the name.
All righty, staff, anything? The cookies are delicious?
They did ask if they could bring a platter. I wasn't sure if
You
it was
said no?
or not. I was with someone today, and I said that, and they said, what did you say, bring 2? So,
I suggested they bring them and leave them.
Yeah.
Leave them after and
so
not let us
that's
know.
my fault, not theirs.
They were
No, anyway, so
delicious.
this plaza is a mix of different uses. And if you recall, way back when, we kind of talked about the peak hour of this plaza. There's a lot of lunchtime business here. And we asked them about that when they came in. And Lauren Rogers from Linear, she was saying that they chose Cookie Monster specifically because it isn't a peak lunch business. It's more in the afternoons. And they had mentioned that weekends, evenings and weekends were kind of their peak times as well. And they do a lot of catering where they bring a tray of cookies or cookie sandwiches to different offices and events around here. And actually mentioned that they did so much business in this area that that's one of the reasons why they decided to locate here in Burlington. So that was good to know. But we did the analysis, the parking analysis and everything, and were looking at that peak hour to make sure it wasn't overstressed with the lunchtime business, which we don't feel it is, as they're mainly dessert and after lunch or evening or even after dinner. So we are good with the proposal and have a decision drafted for you.
I'm putting on calories just looking at the pictures.
I know, I want one of those ice creams.
All righty. Ernie, want to start?
There's no outside patio.
Yes, there is.
Is there?
Well, it looks
Okay.
like there isn't.
At least this is Danvers?
There is an outside, well, more of a walkway, but it's not a paved patio, it's paved.
There's just little seats, like a little table and little seats.
Yeah.
If you know at True North, they have the little table and the two seats. They have two small tables with 2 seats each, so it's not a big patio like we were just
Can you
talking about.
take them in at
It's
night
Literally just.
so they don't get stolen?
Oh, yeah. No, we take them in.
What exists there now? I missed that one.
Scott Trade. Scott Trade?
Scott Trade?
Yep.
Okay, so there's very little traffic there, is there not?
What do you mean?
Foot traffic.
Foot traffic in and
Oh,
out?
yeah, that ends as Joseph A. Banks, FedEx, Scott Trade. We had Pearl Vision. Pearl Vision is vacated, and we have a dentist, actually, that's slated to replace Pearl Vision. So there's not a lot of foot traffic on that end.
I'm all set for now, thank you.
Bill?
I think I'm an advantage here of actually had an opportunity to have Cookie Monster come to a corporate event for my day job, so I think this is a good spot for it. I think, like I said, it's off hours for it, and I think you'll see that be very popular kind of in the off hours where that plaza is typically not overly parked. So I think this is a good spot and a good match. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Department reports, Carol?
Department reports, Inspector of Buildings is favorable with conditions. Is there anything in here that,
No, they should be all pretty standard boilerplate.
okay?
Mhm.
And whatever was in here was discussed and resolved. They had concerns about existing parking situation on the property, and outdoor seating, which we just talked about. Just trying to.
Yeah, that's why we put the Post-it note in there, because we have discussed all the things that were raised by the building
Okay.
inspector, and they were
Yeah,
the same things that we were reviewing,
that
and
we
we
just
are
talked
satisfied.
about. It's
So the
all stuff-
Post-it note is sort of an update to the previous, okay.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
just say that we reviewed the
I
comments.
would try, so you
All
wouldn't.
righty.
And DPW is favorable with conditions, those look to be standard. And.
The Board of Health, the standard food
yeah,
comment.
And fire department is favorable, so.
All righty.
um,
Any other comments?
This doesn't have anything to do with the applicant, it's more with Linear. The back entrance exit, there's a lot of people that come in that take the left into that, where you're not supposed to take a left off of Lexington Street, or that take
A right
Right
going out.
right onto Lexington Street out of that parking lot where you're not supposed to. I don't know how to resolve those issues, but I don't know if that's something that you're aware of, or,
Okay.
but it needs to be.
Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I haven't seen that myself.
Oh, I've been on Lexington
Oh.
Street when people have taken a left in front of me into the parking lot,
So
or,
thank you for telling me. I'm happy to talk about it internally and with Kristen and Josh and the police department if need be.
thank you.
Carol's right, people regularly completely ignore those signs, and part of the reason for that is because it's too easy to do it. That exit should have more of a curve to the left so that people can't turn right comfortably. Right now, they can turn left too comfortably. There's no, it doesn't jut out enough on the side there. It could be, you could reduce the number, not eliminate the number of people doing it, if you made some modifications to the curbing there.
Okay.
That's my opinion. In terms of Cookie Monster, I can't wait for you to open. It looks wonderful. I did want to make sure you're aware that you're not allowed to have any temporary signs of any kind out on your sidewalk or out by the street. But other than that, it looks like a wonderful location for this business. I'm glad that it's not on the left side of the building, but more to the center right, because there is more adequate parking on that side. There's not as much activity there. So, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Joe?
No, I just wanted to make the same observation that was already stated, that, and it must happen a lot, because almost every time I go down there, I see it, and it's not like I'm hanging around there, I'm just driving by, and I see it a lot of times, so it's gonna be happening at a fairly high rate, but that issue's already been brought up, and I guess you're gonna address it with them, and as far as Cookie Monster, good luck, welcome, and hope you guys sell a lot of cookies.
You too.
I think you'll be very popular with the teenage crowd.
And this is your menu.
That's a good snippet of it.
Okay.
It's a little bit broader than that, but that's generally cookies and ice cream, mostly cookies.
Sounds like a good diet to me.
Can't wait.
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this? Seeing none,
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600.
Bless you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of Cookie Monster Company for a special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.6.9 Fast Order Food Establishments of the zoning bylaws to permit a fast order food establishment at 68-110 Burlington Mall Road, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit B attached.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 600. Welcome to Burlington.
Thank you.
When do you intend to open?
Good luck.
Thank you.
When do you,
I'm hoping by mid-May, so,
Wonderful.
Oh, awesome.
beautiful. Would you like these,
if possible.
would you like these back?
He lives down there.
We'd like to keep one set for the files, but you can have the rest of them back
I'll
if you
take
like.
one, good one back. I'm thinking I was gonna leave them with you
We're
guys.
keeping the menu, you can have this.
So I'm gonna let Joe keep this too.
All right, thanks.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to keep this.
Yeah, I'll keep it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott?
We'll keep it.
Thank you. Welcome to town.
Cookies.
All righty.
7C.
7C through 7G. Can I have a motion to take items 7C through 7G together for discussion purposes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, obtained, 600. Public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 6.1.1.2, expansion of a non-conforming use, we still haven't corrected that, of the zoning bylaws, 24 Terry Ave, BAPA Corporation is the applicant. Public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 6.1.2.1, non-conforming structures and premises of the zoning bylaws, 24 Terry Ave, BAPA Corporation applicant. Public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 4.4.1.11, discharges from non-man-made structures into the wetlands of the zoning bylaw, 24 Terry Ave, BAPA Corporation applicant. Public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Sections 8.2.0, Wetlands District of the zoning bylaws, 24 Terry Ave, BAPA Corporation applicant. And finally, item G, public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 24 Terry Ave, BAPA Corporation applicant. Before we say a word, there is only 6 members here, and some of these things require 5 votes. Do you wish to proceed?
We would like to proceed. Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, if that's okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with Reamer Bronstein representing the applicant in connection with the petitions. With me tonight are David Romero, who's with Commonwealth Engineering. I'm sure you're familiar with David, and also Amy Geary, who is with Northern Business Machine, FAPA Corporation, the applicant. Wanted to just reintroduce the project. Obviously, we're talking about the property at 24 Terry Avenue, which is the Northern Business Machines headquarters building, which Amy and her dad own and operate, family-run business for many years operating out of this location. They are a office supply copy company that services a lot of customers in this area, and they are at a position now where they would like to add on a very modest addition to the back portion of their building, basically to allow their operation to breathe a little bit better. They're not looking at adding staffing or personnel, but it just would allow them to be able to allow for a more efficient operation than what they have today. So I want to thank the board members for attending a subcommittee meeting which we had a few weeks ago, talk a little bit more about the building design and some comments and feedback that we got from that meeting, which we were able to modify the plan somewhat to address. So again, just to remind you, the building addition is very modest in size. It's about a 5,500 square foot footprint. It's shown on that back left portion of the site right there.
I think that's on the TV now, is it?
Yes.
So the other folks at home can, the addition is this portion here and that portion there. Am I correct?
That is correct. I've never seen
And
a
the
laser-
changes you made were to have this roof trim comparable to the existing roof trim,
Yes, yeah.
add some windows to that space so it wouldn't be as stark, and even down below some windows.
That's right. I've never seen a laser pointer do that before. That's pretty impressive, but...
Oh, I can make it do anything. What, you want a different color?
So, yeah, obviously, this is not the rendering that you saw previously, and we've revised it pretty significantly, to be honest with you, based upon the feedback that we received, and I think you did a good job, Mr. Chairman, of highlighting those changes, but most notably at the top, we did add that roof feature so that that addition would have a roof that corresponds and mimics, to the extent needed, the existing roof that is there for the current building. We also added windows along that side of the building, and you can see there's windows on the lower level as well that are new, on the first floor level to the right of the overhead door. Those windows are new. We also added a...
You referring to those windows, okay?
Yeah. We also added a landscape bed in front of those windows, which you can see there. If you can zoom in and even see them better if you... But there's a landscape bed with some shrubs, vegetation there to help soften the appearance of that addition. And then we also added more detail embossed panels to that overhead door, which you can faintly see on that, but we're basically looking to dress up that door, which I know was one of the comments that we heard from the planning board during the subcommittee process. So what's not visible on the rendering is that for the rooftop mechanical equipment that would be kind of behind that second floor glass feature up top, we're also adding some soundproofing around that as well. There's some sound barrier fencing that would be around that. I know that there was a concern expressed at the subcommittee about any noise that might emanate from that, so we are putting some sound barrier around that.
That was the thought, because of the addition up above, there would be a hard wall, and now the roof mechanicals that weren't a problem before, their sound would bounce off and reflect towards neighbors, so...
I know our architect wasn't that concerned about it, but as a belt and suspenders approach, we did add that sound barrier to it as well. So if you-
Someone who lives near a place where there is a hard wall and sounds bounce off, I'm very sensitive to that one.
Understood. I know you are. I don't know if you can zoom out, but I just wanted to also highlight a few other things that we had talked about. But so you'll see some vegetation that's also been added out at the front entrance. There's that flowering bed that's there. We're adding plantings there. There's a boxwood. That's the existing condition today. The proposed is the one you just had. I'm sorry.
You want me to go to the, oh, it got moved down.
Wants the updated,
There we go.
Sorry about that.
There's also been boxwood plantings that have been added along the right there, which you can see that help shield the vehicles that would be parked in that location there. Again, that parking scenario exists today, but we did add vegetation there to help block that. Even though we're not working on that side of the property at all, we thought that that would be an appropriate thing to do to help soften. And then on the left, which is kind of off the photo right now, but we did add a dogwood tree. Is it a dogwood? I think it is.
It's some sort of a flowering ornamental.
Which is on the far left of the photo rendering. Can't really see it all that great. I'm just kind of being,
It's on the edge of the photo there, yeah.
beat over this edge?
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
So what I don't see from the discussion is sidewalk.
Correct. I know when we met with the subcommittee, there was a lot kind of talked about and thrown at us at the time. I think what we've really tried to do is focus on the appearance of the building and making it more, compliant, consistent with some of the things that we heard relative to the town center. And, certainly we apologize for not putting that forward. Originally, I guess our thought process was just because the addition is so far back, we didn't really see a lot of those things until after the fact. So now, we put a lot of time, effort, and additional expense into that. With the sidewalk, we just, we aren't proposing that. We understand that there would be room along the town right-of-way to do that in the future, but I know that Northern Business Machine, they have some concerns about the expense and the undertaking that would be involved with that. And I think, Amy can maybe just speak to their company. I mean, they're not a developer, they're not a real estate investor. This is their location where they've operated for a number of years. They take a lot of pride in the appearance of it. They actually maintain all that green space that's on the right, which a large portion of it is actually on town-owned land, and they just feel like that adds a nice element to the site that, you might not otherwise see. And I know that, I was here at one of your prior meetings where there was talk about another project in the town center where they were looking to put pavement out in the front, and, there was a strong desire to try to see that green space remain. So we just thought that it would make sense to, keep it the way it is. But Amy, I don't know if you want to chime
Sure.
in. but-
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. So my name's Amy Gary, as Mark said. I own the building with my dad, Bill Tracia, who's here. We have been in this building since 1994. We've been a Burlington resident since we opened in 1985. My dad started the business with a partner with 2 employees at that time, and now we've grown to, 65 employees, and we love Burlington. It's our home. We want to stay there. I grew up coming to our warehouse and with going to work with my dad and playing in the copy machine boxes, my siblings and I, and now my kids come to work with me and do the same thing, and my brother works there as well. So we truly are a private, family-owned, and not just family-owned, but family-owned and operated business. So we're not a retail mega giant, we're not a developer, we're not an investor coming in, we're not a foreigner, we are very much involved with the town of Burlington. We contribute to the tree lighting ceremony every year. We sponsor sponsorships for high school students. We service the town of Burlington copy machines and really feel invested in the community. But we're at a point where we can't stay in this building unless we expand. And that's it's a function of growing, and it's a great problem to have, and we don't want to leave. We love the site, but we can't stay with the warehouse space that we have right now. And so that's what precipitated this discussion about the addition and, what caused us to come before you and start looking at other alternatives so that we can stay here and Burlington can remain our family's second home. So we really appreciated going before the subcommittee. It was really helpful for us to take a step back and evaluate how we can comply with the town center overlay and improve the appearance of the building. So we incorporated every design element that you requested, and, you know, we do, like I said, we're not a developer, we do operate it on a budget, so we are taking these extra costs and, you know, doing that at an additional cost, and are happy to do so to improve the neighborhood and improve the appearance. Our property is the nicest property on the street. I don't know if any of you have driven down Terry Ave, but we take pride in the landscaping. We pay for professional landscaping. We want to be a good neighbor to our neighbors, you know, who are behind us and, you know, up in the residential neighborhood. So, you know, we took your suggestions, and I think we incorporated them as best we could to comply with the bylaws and, you know, and within, you know, within reason. So the sidewalk is, we just found it challenging. We feel that the sidewalk, I don't feel comfortable building a sidewalk on town land. And it's a sidewalk that's going to go to nowhere, so it feels premature at this point to build a sidewalk that goes into the woods. My office is right at that corner, under the logo there. I just rarely see people walking throughout the day. I'm not saying people don't walk, but there's just not a lot of people. So we tried to incorporate what we could in terms of landscaping and the design elements, and we think that we incorporated a majority of what you asked for. So that's where we stand right now.
Yeah, and you know, focus has been on our frontage, as you can see, too, which, you know, the frontage is really where that driveway entrance is and where the landscaping has been provided to, so.
And I would just note, when we bought this building in 1994, Raytheon was here. We purchased the building from Raytheon. And they were operating 3 shifts into the night, packaging missiles. So we feel our presence is a big improvement to that. And we, you know, we're just a boring office technology company. So we want to stay. But we have to address these space concerns.
The one thing that has happened since you got here is the town center overlay, which looks for different uses, and technically, the concept, if for a non-conforming site, is eventually it will go away, and you're asking to improve so you can stay even longer. So there's trade-offs there. That's why it requires 5 votes of this board rather than the normal 4 to get what they call the Section 6. So there is trade-offs that the town is making too, and they're looking to accommodate some of the aspects of town center into the design. So that's part of what was going on, and we spent several hours, a bunch of us, at that subcommittee meeting, which you were there. So you saw, you know, what the thinking was. So there's no new comments from any of the town departments? Correct, okay. Joe, do you want to start?
No, I'm not sure. Conservation has approved the project. I'm not sure if that was, I don't know if that was the case last time they were here, so just wanted to update that.
What's the date of the
To that
conservation?
point, we did
2:15.
actually make some significant improvements as part of that. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of stormwater upgrades on the property.
That's over the other end, the expansion end, yeah.
Toward the back of the site.
It would be in this, so here's the addition,
Yeah.
the darker kind of orange color here. This is where our frontage is right here, up on Terry Ave.
Yep.
And, you know, from what I understand, David, we were required to make a lot of curbing improvement changes down in that area of
So
the
that
park.
whole back area will be sloped granite curbing all along the back edge of the site, as well as the stormwater improvements, stormwater quality. We're going to be infiltrating on the roof, gathering all the runoff off the site, so we're treating it before it just went off into the wetlands, now we're treating it. So a lot of improvements that you'll see.
Well, that's understandable. You kind of knew the conservation was going to require that before you went there. Yeah.
And have you submitted a snow management plan?
Yes.
And where will the snow go?
It would be on the islands toward the front, so that when it melts into the parking lot. And then that would go into the catch basin and treat it before it's discharged, so that way we can catch it all. We won't be putting snow up against the wetlands and all.
Staff, anything?
So there's a bunch of the sections here. So this is, part of this site is in the wetlands district, which is a district that was drawn in 1977 off some mapping that, before the Conservation Commission actually formally outlined and had folks delineate the actual boundary of wetlands. So when you're looking at the non-conforming use section, it's the non-conforming use not in the IG district. It conforms to the IG district, but it is a non-conforming use in that wetland district section. So just to clarify that, I know that was something I misspoke about previously. Otherwise, the special permit, the non-conforming structures, as we've discussed previously, and then the site plan itself to allow for the expansion. So they have incorporated everything that we had noted on the building. They've incorporated all of the changes. And to the site, I know we had talked about a couple different things, including the sidewalk and some lighting for safety within the intersection and some additional vegetation. But they have, conservation did require them to do significant upgrades to the stormwater and drainage system, as well as curbing and pavement repair in the back of the site, as a lot of older buildings in town don't have upgraded stormwater. So that's good. That is a significant improvement along the wetland area. Otherwise, we have talked to, we had the subcommittee meeting, we also talked to the applicant just to try to find ways of trying to understand the scope of the project. It's not a totally new project, it's an existing building. How do we make it better? We have to make the finding if it's not substantially more detrimental. They're not adding staff, they're adding some space. They are including upgrades to the visual architectural design of the building. But how do we figure out kind of the nexus between what they're building? It's not a totally new building with the improvements they're putting in. So that's kind of the balance that we need to try to achieve here. But otherwise, we do have a decision drafted. If you look, there's a couple question marks just to kind of where we left off. And I think we just need to have this conversation here just to try to figure out just how we can move forward, how we can continue. Obviously we want them to stay here. It's his family business in Burlington. They have done a good job maintaining the site, and just, how do we just kind of keep it in the same, that's theme, and, obviously enhancing the town center. This isn't Cambridge Street fronting, but I think they have done a good job with adding landscaping proposed. And, just the fact that they have this nice lawn out front. I can't say the same thing for any of the sites down there, especially, behind any of those buildings. So, anyway, there is some kind of question marks here for us to discuss tonight, so I would just point the board to.
You're talking question marks
They're on
in
page
the
5
staff
in bold.
report or in C?
In the staff report, just kind of
Okay.
as to where we left off with the subcommittee meeting, speaking with the applicant and just trying to figure out, the applicant has made significant strides forward with the building envelope itself, and just trying to figure out where we're going to end up here, so.
You're talking about the items in bold.
Correct.
Yes. Or any other questions the board may have on the project.
Is that Terry Everwall?
Was that Joe?
Sure. Couple of things.
Long as,
The addition is rather large, and I think we tried to do some things to cut it up, and it really didn't, in my opinion, do a lot. I'm wondering if maybe there can be some sort of maybe an awning, a black awning running the distance of this coming down that would kind of break it up and add a little bit of dimension to that side of it. Because it just, to me, It really didn't do much, you know, from the original design that we had. The two windows, really, you can't see them, and doesn't break it up that much, and kind of just looks very commercial looking, which is what, you know, we're not
It's
looking
a
for.
commercial building.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately in the downtown, we're not looking for commercial looking, even though they're all commercial buildings, you know. And secondly, I hear her say, you know, she said that she's uncomfortable putting a walkway on the town property, and it goes to nowhere, and she has an office there that she doesn't see a lot of people walking. Well, the whole, as you explained to you, the whole, you know, with this revitalization project in the downtown, the whole purpose of that was to get pedestrian traffic down into the downtown. Unfortunately, all of those neighborhoods, if we're successful in enticing these people into the downtown, we have to accommodate these people into the downtown, and we can't let them be walking through an industrial area, you know, with cars and everything else going down there. I understand you're saying it dead ends into a woods area, but the fact is, that's all residential in that area. Once they hit this commercial area, they should be off the road and on a walkway. So I'm not, I'm not really sure if you're just not comfortable putting it on town property, which I don't think there is a problem with that. I think the town is more than willing to accommodate, you know, you guys being able to put it out there, and it wouldn't incur any liability in doing that. But, you know, we also talked about lighting and trees, and I don't see any of that either. And again, we're not picking on you, because everybody in the downtown, we're asking for the same accommodations from, as well as your neighbors, just a couple of businesses up, or one or two businesses up the road, we're asking for the same thing. So is it simply the discomfort of putting it on town property and the fact that it dead ends? I'm sure there's, you know, when you sit there, you're probably right, and you probably don't see a lot of people on the weekdays, but I'm sure on weekends, and the plan is to get more and more people walking from those neighborhoods down into the center of town and using the storefronts. As things get redeveloped down there, there's going to be more stores and more storefronts that people will be able to eventually use down there. So that's the plan, and it's a long-term plan, and it's not necessarily in effect right now. And so maybe what you see for pedestrian traffic out there right now is not what it's going to be, hopefully 5 years from now, or 2 years from now, or 10 years from now. We're hoping that the pedestrian traffic gets much heavier going through there and using the businesses in the downtown. So that's kind of the purpose of it. It wasn't really to accommodate right now, you know, people walking during the weekdays. But I'm sure even now, if, you know, you probably work weekdays, I'm sure the weekend traffic, foot traffic, picks up exponentially as well, because I'm sure when people are home, they're walking down into the center, and they're using the center, and they're walking their dogs, and they're just going for walks. And those are the kinds of things we're trying to actually encourage. And we can't encourage them unless we have walkways. We can't encourage people to be walking in the downtown by taking their lives in their hands and walking on the streets, on curves and everything else like that. So that's kind of the reason for it. And again, it's just creating consistency through the whole downtown, and this is part of the overlay. So that's my thought on it.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
First of all, I actually don't have any problem with the building design that you've put forward. I think you've addressed the things that we brought up in the meeting. You've added what we've asked you to add. Is it a beautiful colonial building? No, but it never is going to be. It is what it is, and I think you've done what you can do with it with this addition. I do agree with Joe that we'd like to see the walkway there, and I understand it's hard to imagine or hard to picture, because right now you're the only one in the neighborhood that is this attractive, and the only one in the neighborhood that would be doing this. You're the first person to come before us, and this is the type of thing that we would require of anyone else that comes before us in your neighborhood, so that in the future, the whole neighborhood is going to look as beautiful as your landscaping and have walkways all the way. I know it's hard to visualize right now because your neighbors are significantly behind you, and that's unfortunate, but I think you've done a nice job. I like the landscaping. I think you addressed a lot of the things that we asked for. The walkway is still something we'd like to see, but everything else I think you've done a really good job with.
Carol?
Thank you. I too agree about the sidewalk. I would even be happy, and bituminous is not my favorite. We generally prefer granite and concrete and granite. But I would be happy with even bituminous for a sidewalk there. That's just my thoughts. But I like all the other improvements that you made with the landscaping and such. So, thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm at an advantage with the board. I'm one of those weekend warriors that actually does walk down from the neighborhood back there, and I know there's a couple other folks here in the neighborhood that do that as well. And we do come right down from the neighborhood, so when I heard that the sidewalk's going to go to nowhere, it actually goes from the office park into the neighborhood, and you get a different feel when you come from the center of town through the industrial park here, and then you get into the woods and into the neighborhood, and you get a different feel from walking. You're not concerned about the cars coming around the corner there because they're taking it at a different speed versus once you open up into that area, it's a different traffic flow. And being one of those people, that if you had the sidewalk there, you're jumping in from the downtown area, it would be great to have the sidewalk right there, and then you cross past the stop sign, and it'd be nice to have a crosswalk there, and then the sidewalk continues right around, at the storage
Existing
company
sidewalk,
right
you
there. The existing sidewalk does, so it'd be nice to have a continuation there. And again, as you go north, then you disperse into the neighborhoods. So, that'd just be my comment. But I'd really like to hear from the other neighbors on here, who I know I pass by their houses when we walk, and that's exactly what we do, Joe. We take a nice summer evening, we take the walk down from the neighborhood. We'll hit the schoolhouse, or we'll hit, if we got to run to Shaw's or something like that, and we'll put the backpack on and take the groceries back up the hill. So it's what you're envisioning, and I think you see more people out there.
More of it happens, and it's not going to unless we have accommodation for it, and that's the problem,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank you very much for having not only a good-looking piece of property, but definitely the best-looking piece of property down there. It's nice, and it's not, it's been that way for quite a while. It's not, you just did it because you're coming here, so that's good. But I also, having been with Joe on the Town Center Committee and the 3A Committee before that, we have to start somewhere. I agree. And you're here. I know you're a family-owned business. I empathize with you coming from a family-owned business, but what it is the sidewalk definitely doesn't go, it doesn't meet another sidewalk, but it does meet pedestrians who will be walking from what they consider a safer area, the Long Street area, on into the town center. And I noticed that that staff has put a few different, are these options, or are these applicant offers in the town accept?
These are options for discussion.
Yeah, I don't, it seems every time we're given an easement or whatever in money to do sidewalks, we don't seem to get the sidewalks. So it would be nice if whoever's proposing it does it. And I really wasn't of this opinion maybe a week ago, but taking a ride down there and looking around, there's probably never going to be a sidewalk down the rest of Long Street. But it's two different areas. I would also like to see a sidewalk there. And then there was a question about lights on the area. I'm not sure how crazy we have to go with the lights. I would say towards your driveway, yes, but I don't know about towards the residential area. But I don't know how everybody else feels on that.
Even the electrical conduit for the
Under-
lighting to be done in the future.
Put that under the sidewalk.
Yeah, if you can, if
The
you,
lights can come later.
Lights there, though, because is that going to shine into the neighborhood? I don't
that's
know.
the other thing, I don't know.
Well, the lights now have to meet the dark
Yeah,
sky.
dark skies, but still, it's,
Well,
Yeah.
We're not asking for a lot of lights. I think we had narrowed it down to a handful of lights right now.
But I think, at least one down at the corner there to mark the driveway and like
Stop
the
sign.
beginning of the sidewalk
I
would,
think they need to, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you should have them, you should have them along the walkway, right? Whether they're, whatever the distance is, I mean, it's consistent throughout the center of town. That's why eventually it's gonna have to happen, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
In other words, it's,
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make one more comment, if he's
Sure.
finished to complete.
Yep.
Just, I made a comment the last time about, seeing the cars coming up Grapevine and cutting over, I forget the name of the street now, it heads over there.
Leopold.
Leopold. I haven't seen that. The last time I saw one, it actually went down Cambridge Street and took the right, so I'm happy with the kind of, the revised traffic flow. It's not
Chairman?
going through the neighborhoods.
Can I just make
Sure.
a comment? So I did want to remind the board for this site, and look, I mean, as you know, I've represented a number of folks that have proposed projects in the town center on Cambridge Street, and we've all kind of suffered through some of those together, right? But, what has always happened with those, the focus has truly been on the frontage of the site, whether it's the Building 19 site or the Rockland Trust site, or in terms of what we could do along where we have frontage. And I did want to remind the board, we actually don't have frontage along Long Street there. We own land there, but we don't actually abut Long Street. The town is the one that has the land around there. We maintain it, we keep it up, but, I think that is an important distinction to make here, that, we are doing everything we can, as you can see, to really improve the appearance of the front entry where the frontage is, but I just know that the applicant has, there's only so much from a funding perspective that makes sense here, and I just would ask the board to take that into consideration. And furthermore, I do think, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a portion of that Long Ave area up there would also likely be within Concom jurisdiction, or?
Yeah, I think, I'm not certain, but I think a majority of that area would be within the 100-foot buffer, so that would require some sort of a permit from conservation as well. And it's also, it's pretty heavily treed toward the end, about 200 feet down. It's got a lot of woods along that edge. So there's a lot of tree removal that would come into place if that happened, so
if you
there's an impact to that green area.
to your comment, Attorney Vaughn, the frontage and streetscape are the same in the other projects. Here, frontage and streetscape are a little different. So when you're talking frontage, we're talking streetscape. And so I think the sidewalk and the treatment along there is a streetscape treatment rather than a frontage treatment.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Like the
ask?
Building 19, their frontage is their streetscape. So that, I think, is where the thinking goes for the
I just
town
like
center.
with Rockland Trust, for example, I think Rockland Trust is the one, we.
They're on a corner.
On a corner, I believe, did sidewalk on Cambridge Street, but we, didn't do anything on the street that's.
Forbes.
Forbes, yeah.
Yes.
Because that's, not where the frontage of the lot was.
Was the sidewalk there already, was it not?
No.
I don't know.
No?
No.
No. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Or make a suggestion, perhaps? I'm not insensitive to the idea that this is a smaller business, and we're asking you to incur additional expense, and I don't know how the rest of my board members might feel about this, but I wonder if it would be possible to perhaps move forward and put in the condition that the walkway would have to be constructed within X number of years, maybe 3 years, so that you could build your building, do the outside improvements and the landscaping and perhaps delay that expense, but still, eventually the town would get what it's looking for within a reasonable time period. I don't know how the rest of the board members might feel about that, but it's something that I think might be worth considering.
I would agree that we could.
And we're talking bituminous, not cement concrete. We're talking a green space or landscape, earth space between the roads, so the sidewalk be set back so the pedestrians are not up against traffic. I think that was the discussion back at the subcommittee.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just, my thoughts on it are this, and I understand, and I echo the comments that your property is the best-kept property down there, but quite honestly, it's, the surrounding properties are horrible. And I feel for the people who have to drive through that every single day. And so what we're doing now is we're allowing the industrial area, even though it's not by right, we're allowing them to increase the amount that these people are going to have to drive through every single day without any give back to the actual people who are going to have to endure it. I mean, and that's, there's been nothing done for the people that, there's hundreds of homes back there now. This isn't by right that they can just put big additions on the commercial property going through that, in that area over there. And I'm sorry, it's just, if I were living back there, and it would be a big decision for me to say, yeah, I'm okay with them increasing the size of the buildings as we go through. So, okay, what are you gonna do for me if I'm living there? And we're not asking a lot. We're asking for a walkway, a few lights, and some trees. I don't see that as a lot. I mean, the walkway, we already said, what is it, 4 feet wide? 3 feet, 4 feet wide, 3.5, 4 feet wide?
Well,
It's not if you look at, especially where it's
if the
bituminous.
sidewalk goes in, it has to be ADA compliant.
Yeah, and I think ADA is 3.5 feet. I mean, maybe 4 feet. So the bottom line is, in other words, it's nothing that, it literally only has to be ADA. It doesn't have to be
What is
any
it,
wider.
4, 5, what's ADA?
I think
5
it's-
inches or
I think it's
4.5 feet?
For the runs, we would recommend 4. To get around things, you can go as low as 3. But
Right, so
for 2 people to walk,
so
3 is pretty
truly,
tight next to each other.
3.5 is sufficient, if it was that big of a deal. I mean, another 6 inches, I don't think, was that big of a deal anyway, but it's bituminous. It's not, if you look at all the walkway you'd have to put in, it doesn't equate to putting in an additional parking lot. I mean, it's a different story if you're gonna be doing concrete and granite curbing and all that stuff. I mean, we're just talking about basically digging up a little area, putting a walkway and some lighting in there. I don't see it, I'd like to, maybe they could get a price and let us know what the price is gonna be, or, I just feel like, the people that are gonna have to put up with this every day, I don't live there, so yeah, I don't have to put up with it, but if I did live there, I would expect something back to allow me to be able to enjoy the downtown and be able to through it, and at the same time, enhance the looks of of that area going through there in the entrance to my neighborhood. I mean, and again, it's too bad that this business is the first one coming up, really.
Well, did we
because
not ask sidewalks at the storage place further towards Cambridge Street?
We did. We have sidewalks, we have
They
lighting.
said the sidewalks to nowhere, well, the sidewalks are up, eventually these
Carrying
sidewalks are
right
nowhere connected, we have a sidewalk system, but that's,
Just like it's supposed, just like the overlay had meant it to be. But again, it maybe seems a little unfair that the nicest location down there is the one that's coming up first, but,
Joe,
Yeah.
can I just respectfully, I think we are doing things to improve the appearance. I mean, that photo doesn't show it, but, we are adding significant plantings to, really shield the view of those vehicles. We're adding flowering plantings as well at the corner. We're adding a new tree on the other side of that driveway.
I get it, Mark.
So,
I get it.
We are doing things to.
I get it, but if you
visually-
look at it.
And all of that stuff, Joe, is somewhat far removed from where the addition is. I think you have
Yep.
to acknowledge the addition's kind of tucked.
If you look at a side-by-side picture, And I've done that, and I've spent a lot of time looking at that. A side-by-side picture of what exists now, and then the size of the addition and the building, the way it's going to be with that on there, there's no question it's more intrusive, right? And the bottom line is, the neighborhood is, the people in the neighborhood are saying, look, we're okay with that, but what are you going to do for us too, right? I mean, so I don't think we're asking a lot to connect, like the overlay requires, to connect that area and to add some lighting and some walkways.
It's arguable.
If I could
whether
interrupt
it's
you too, this
required
is a
or not,
public
right?
hearing, and I know there are some neighbors, so I want to give them time to comment, and then after they comment, maybe you will have some additional comment. So, it's a public hearing. Anyone in the audience here to speak on this? I see a hand.
Kathy O'Neill.
I am Kathy O'Neill.
Kathy, you know enough to use the microphone?
And we all know her well enough to know she doesn't need to use the microphone.
Now, Joe.
It's coming from you. Anyway, I do think that they're working to try to make things better. I don't see a huge change in the building, but I'm not an expert on it either, so I don't want to speak to that. I am here more to speak about the sidewalks, trees, and lighting. I do want to point out, though, that at that far end, where the other trees start, you really couldn't take those trees down. I don't know what conservation's position is on that, but they're definitely wet there. And if you took those trees down at the end, it would be a complete view right into the neighborhood. So I would never want to see that.
Right.
That would be horrible.
So,
Having said that,
you're talking those trees there?
yeah,
So where would the sidewalk go if we, we'd never be able to connect it, right?
no, you'd have to walk in the street to get there.
Right there, yeah, you
And
stop
it would be
there.
on that green grass there.
Which, I don't want to interrupt your time, but
But you will.
No, listen, it'd be great if those trees were back further and you could put the sidewalk all the way to the end, but you can't. Just like, we can't make that a brand-new colonial building because it isn't. So let's work together and compromise. I think the point is made. They think it's a small addition, but I don't. It's 11,000 square feet and it's 2 stories. It's not a small addition. There's no additional traffic going there, I get that. I think that's great. I just think in terms of the appearance, the approach, if they're really trying to be a good neighbor, if they're really trying to work with the neighbors, maybe if they can take a step back and look at that and try to view it from our position. A few trees would do no harm along that with the walkway, as you said, pavement, it's 4-foot wide pavement. I don't know numbers, so I can't say in all reality, but to me, it doesn't seem, and maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like it would be a huge investment. I think some trees, a few lights or a couple of lights, I don't know what the standards are, and a walkway would make, even just in terms of aesthetics, for the people coming in and out of that neighborhood, it would show that they're trying to be a good neighbor, and they are. Everyone has said that tonight, really. They're a family-owned business, I get that. I'm not trying to make them do anything that's going to cause a huge problem for them, but I don't think it's asking for that much, I really don't. And it is in the overlay. And Jack, you made the point about that it's non-conforming, and the reason it's like that is so that we could eventually make it go away, right? So what does
the
that mean
concept-
exactly? If you said no to this, are they going to close and then a store goes in there? I'm not sure what that means.
If they were to go away, the use and structure, and that came down, any use or structure would have to conform to the town center.
So
But because they were there before that new zoning,
Right,
they're fully entitled to stay forever.
okay.
And if they look to expand, this board has to find that it's not substantially more detrimental than what's there.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it can't be a little more, or you wouldn't allow anything, but that,
But if they did leave and that building came down, what would go in there? Another industrial building or a commercial property?
well, there's the underlying zoning is,
The underlying zoning,
IG.
it's industrial zoned.
So even though it's in the overlay, that doesn't change?
Right, no, it the design would be compliant with the downtown, though.
Okay.
Design, but it could
Oh,
be an
the design, but it
industrial
could be the same
building that
use.
looked
Okay.
like it fit
Raytheon
in
could
there.
come back.
it would have to comply with whatever the zoning is.
So again, I think it'd be great if everybody could work together here, but I do think that if they did step back and try to view everything we're putting up with down there, and we all know what that is, that they might be able to understand a little bit better the position of the neighbors. We're just looking for it to be a little more aesthetically, maybe blocking it a bit, as you said, the trees, the lights. The trees and the lights in the sidewalk down by the storage place are so much nicer. So if there's any way possible that they could do that, everybody would appreciate it. And we then would be in a position where we know that they can understand where we're coming from, and they're trying to make things a little bit better for the neighbors, because there are hundreds of houses up there, and people do access that street, particularly in the nice weather and certainly on the weekends. So that's all I wanted to say. And thanks for everybody for working on it.
Thank you. And for the record, for our minutes, it's Kathy O'Neill.
Yes.
And the address,
31 Arborwood Ave.
31 Auburn. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience like to speak? Okay, back to you and Joe are having a discussion, as I recall. And do you both wish to continue that?
No, look, we're trying to be cooperative here. I think hopefully that's come across. I mean, we've made some significant adjustments to the building. I think, I had a chance to chat with Amy and David just now. I mean, we don't want to be in the business of having to construct a sidewalk. I think if we could maybe make a contribution towards the town to construct a sidewalk along that area, we would be, I'm not sure if your leg was long enough, you might be kicking me, but we might be willing to make a contribution to the town towards that.
Can I stop you right there? Because if the town has to build it, we have to go by prevailing wage, and it costs us 2 to 3 times as much as a private party building it.
I'm sure that would apply for a bituminous sidewalk, though.
We have to go to bid.
Everything.
We have to pay prevailing wage. A private party building it doesn't have to go through that. The cost is significantly less by at least half.
You're going to have a contractor in there building the building. The
You're going to have some
contractor can
parking
do
lot
that.
work done?
I mean, we're not going to have a sidewalk contract. I mean, we're going to have a contractor that's building the building, but.
Doing anything with parking lot? Paving there?
No, just
No.
Mr. Kirby.
So, I just want to address a couple of things. I genuinely feel uncomfortable having my contractor dig up the town's land. I'm just not comfortable with it. Maybe it's because we are a small family-owned business. There's a lot of liability that that makes me nervous. I also, it's in a buffer to wetlands. I don't know, that's going to be another approval process that we just went through this with the Conservation Commission, and they closed the hearing, and, they did the go-ahead because the addition is on the other side. It's not near where we're building the addition, and quite frankly, the size of the addition is really, on the rendering, it appears bigger than it is, because when I asked the person who did the rendering, it was so they could see it. But if you're coming down Terry Ave, it's tucked in the back, in the most discreet place that you could possibly have an addition. We really put a lot of time and effort into really planning out where to put it so that it would be the least intrusive to the street. You won't be able to see that addition anywhere on Long Street, coming down Long Street. You will not see that. This property, I understand, I've read the town center, I've read the bylaws, I understand it. But this property is different on the outskirts of the town center overlay than say, going up Cambridge Street. And what, you look at the storage facility, you can see that from Cambridge Street. This you can't see. We're an industrial building.
Yeah, let me just interject with one thing. You actually impact the residential neighbors more than a house would on 3A. So, we're thinking about the neighborhoods here as well. I mean, we're trying to connect these neighborhoods with the downtown, and, what we're trying to accomplish here is, the zoning that you see today would never happen that you see here now would never happen today. This would never be zoned like that. You'd never have an industrial zone property connected to a residential zone. It just wouldn't happen. So we're now trying to mitigate those times. We're trying to fix mistakes that have happened in the past. And this is, with the overlay, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create at least, respectable entrances from these areas into the residential areas. And it just softens the blow to the residential areas. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to not only connect it so that they use the downtown, but we're also trying to, create a nice transition into these areas. And that's all. That's with the lighting, that's what we'd be doing. With the trees, that's what we'd be doing. And with the walkway, we'd be enticing and accommodating the foot traffic instead of car traffic. So, like you said, it would go into the trees, it would go into nowhere. You're right, but that part is a residential area. It's much more comfortable walking a residential area than it is walking on this curve in a commercial area like that. And that's why I think
So
it's
it's the same,
important that
but the amount of traffic from that point going into the commercial area would be the same.
I get it, Mark. I drive it all the time.
No, I know.
And I see cars flying around that corner.
Right.
And then when they hit when they get to the neighborhoods, all of a sudden, it's a calming measure. You see in neighborhoods, you see in houses, they slow down a little bit. They go around that corner pretty good clip, and it's not a safe corner.
I've just, I heard what Kathy O'Neill said just about, the trees and not wanting to see those removed that are there.
No, right, and that's not what we're asking.
No, I know, but I guess what I'm saying is that it would be just dead end there. Just, is it possible that, Kathy had mentioned maybe adding, a couple of trees or something that maybe help soften that side of the building? Is that something that we could do instead? I know my client is not amenable to constructing a sidewalk. And to her point, we now have to embark upon a whole separate approval process through the Conservation Commission oh, by the way, the site's in a wetlands district, right?
Well, when did you go to conservation? When was the last?
Process started a few months ago, but it was
Right.
approved last month.
It ran concurrently with this process.
So you knew, this isn't a surprise. This is something that you just chose not to adhere to, but if you had done that, you would have been able to tell conservation, this is the plan, is this going to be a problem?
No, that's.
Well, how about we said, if the conservation is going to put any additional restrictions on this sidewalk, you only build up to the point where they don't cause a problem. So you avoid having a conservation problem.
I think the point is that, and again, I don't know the exact jurisdictional limits, but it sounds like any portion of that sidewalk is probably going to be within their jurisdiction, but I don't know for certain.
Well, how about if it requires conservation, since it is town property, it would be the town's responsibility to go through the permitting and requirement process, not you, and once we got it, you would build it.
I think that's better, but I still
Okay.
prefer that it would just be that we would make a contribution to the town to do it.
Yeah, but
If we don't
a
build,
contribution for the town to do it would be cost more than it would be for you to do it. That's my concern, and I don't think that that's a sound use of dollars.
Really?
I'm trying to find a way here for a business that's been in town for a long time and who has been a good business in town, created, a lot of jobs and maintains their property. I'm just trying to find a way that accommodates the idea and the concept of the overlay, the town center overlay, and work towards it. I've offered a suggestion, but we've batted this back and forth where we've got other things we have to deal with. So I guess at this point, we have to make a decision. So here we are, folks. What do we want to do?
Can I just ask, how many feet is that? Do we know?
From where to where?
from where
Stop
you
signs.
start the sidewalk to
Trees.
where you could place it without impacting the trees?
About 220 feet, probably so that
220,
tree.
okay. Thank you.
So do I have any kind of a motion, folks?
Can you just give us 1 second?
Sure. If I may, staff, there is conditions G through K. You're saying the,
That's what they said was for our discussion.
right, that is the bituminous sidewalk with a 3-foot space between the road and it. The town accepts the easement. H is, I'm not quite sure that that is what the board's looking for.
It would be G, right?
Well, I think what's been brought up by the board is, do we condition it that they don't need to build it now, but build it later? They are offering the contribution to the town. The other that just came up was build it to something that's not in conservation jurisdiction.
Yep.
So there's a couple things that have been kind of thrown out here, and it's just trying to figure out.
Personally,
Where
I
we
would
are.
rather delay the building of it as opposed to accepting money and having the town build it, because that's not going to happen.
Right, I agree,
Exactly.
agree.
I think that delaying the building of it is helpful if the expense is a problem for this business, and it still allows us to give the town what it's looking for eventually, and maybe we say 3.
Plan for the town to build it.
I would be fine with that, and maybe
At
that
the
3-year
cost.
gives them some leeway there, and because if the town can wrap it into another sidewalk plan in that time
Right.
period, that would make sense, and if the town can't get it done within that time period, then it's incumbent upon the applicant to build it.
Yeah, I mean, because the applicant would need to work with the engineering department anyway, even if they build it.
Right.
And knowing that there's kind of these other things happening all at the same time, I don't know if it makes sense to, obviously, it sounds like there's a preference that you want them to build it, but if for some reason the town has a preference that they want to
My
wrap
reason
it
for
into another
wanting them to
project
build
is-
it
yeah.
is just because I think it may not get done otherwise. But if the town can do it within I'm saying, throwing 3 years out there, but I'm open to other suggestions, within, say, a 3-year period, if the town can do it using money supplied by the applicant, I have no problem with that. I just want to make sure that it gets done.
Right. Okay.
So is that, so you're talking just the walkway, you're talking the trees and the lights?
For
Or-
that
or-
particular
or
piece,
the-
I was talking the 4-foot walkway in terms
So
of the
they'll put
plan.
the trees and the lights up now, and the walkway we can,
I don't know if you put the lights
No,
up
you don't
before
want
you
to
put
put,
up
you
the
don't want to put
walkway.
trees and lights up before construction of a walkway. I
we
wouldn't.
we don't know when that's.
I think they go together, don't they?
I mean, I don't know why we'd have to wait 3 years for that. I mean, it's not even us, it's the people in the neighborhood that have to.
I'm only offering the 3-year thing as a compromise. Would it be better if it got built now? Of course, but I also I'm sort of in recognition of the fact that this is the best-looking property in the area and that the other properties are way behind. I was thinking that is a compromise that I would be willing to make, but I'm only one person on the board, and I don't know how everyone else would feel about that.
I think we would be willing to construct the sidewalk, the portion of it that wouldn't be within Conservation Commission jurisdiction, down near the trees or wherever that ends. The bituminous concrete sidewalk, the length before it, requires approval from that body, which we obviously don't have control over, right? But I would ask respectfully if the board would, given the other improvements that we're talking about making, the vegetation and everything else, not require decorative street lights up there and other improvements. It's just, you know, we're trying to work with you, and would appreciate it if you could try to work with us as well.
So if we temporarily waive the decorative streetlights, if they had to go inboard of the sidewalk and it was your property, you would give us easement to put them up, I would presume? So I don't, you know, if the sidewalk is going to be 4 feet wide or 4.5 feet wide, and there's a 3-foot grass strip between the edge of pavement and the sidewalk to make it comfortable for pedestrians, if any portion of that sidewalk landed on your property or so close that,
I think the sidewalk can all be done within the town property.
how close would it come to
I
there?
thought we looked at that, and I think the closest it gets probably it's either 7 or 9 feet wide that you have, so that's probably the most narrow portion is 7 or 9 feet. I think you can build a sidewalk within that without having to get.
Okay, no, I'm thinking if the streetlights that would, we would hope eventually get there, whether somebody else pays for them or however, if they are on the inboard side of the sidewalk, if we needed any type of slope easement or something from the applicant, that they would be agreeing to that now.
Slope easement is grading or something like that.
It sounds like the
Because from what you described, it wouldn't impact their property. You would have 3 feet plus 4 feet. Well, you said 7 to 9, so 3 feet plus a 4-foot or 4.5-foot sidewalk.
The grass strip and the sidewalk in there, 7
Okay.
feet.
But if, as I say, if the streetlights went inboard of that, it may be actually at one point or so on their property, so we would want permission now to do that.
It would be a limited easement for solely the purpose of installing and maintaining the lights.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just, yeah, I mean, we'll do that. We're trying to be,
We're trying to find
Yeah. I'm trying to find
something
middle
here that
ground.
meets
Yeah.
the spirit of the town center
Understood.
and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And
and so that's our only, that's really kind of our only green space right there on the property. So that, I mean, yes, we could certainly give an easement for the purpose of the lighting, you know, limited and tailored to that purpose.
Okay, any further thoughts on
I'm
that
not-
idea?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure who agreed to what here. So,
Okay.
so are we doing trees,
Well,
are we doing
our
lights, are
staff
we
has
doing
been
sidewalk?
taking notes, so
Not sure.
we will have her summarize it. And
Okay.
Ms. O'Neill is
May I just make another comment, please?
certainly,
So,
wait till you get to the microphone, please, Kathy.
so I think a compromise is great, but if we're going to be foregoing the lights right now, what about the trees? Bill was just about to bring that up. I think if the sidewalk's going to go in and we're going to wait on the lights, at least the trees should go in as well.
And you want the trees between the sidewalk and the street or the other
Wherever,
side of?
I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but somewhere along that way. I mean, I think that's going to help soften the approach. And it doesn't have to be 1,000 trees, you know, but a few trees that get kind of big so it can sort of block that and make the approach into the residential area that much better. I don't think it's a huge expense.
We're gonna, I mean,
Can they put the conduit in? So they'll put the conduit in when they put the walkway in. The problem is this, if they talk about the jurisdiction of conservation, I mean, conservation's got jurisdiction 100 feet out from any wetland, so, does that mean that they go out 100 feet and they're not gonna, that's.
I don't know
that
where the,
becomes a problem.
I don't know where the,
Do we have a wetlands?
We only flagged the wetland a certain distance because we weren't anticipating any work in that area, so we don't know where the wetland line is exactly.
Right, but, so what you're
when-
saying is.
if I can get this, we're talking, where the heck is this? Come on. Is this the geography we're talking here?
Yeah, so the wetland, we stopped flagging at this point. I don't know if the wetland comes out, goes up, I don't know what happens here.
Okay.
So the buffer comes across the site like this, Could go out, it could go in, I really don't know.
All right, so we really, it's difficult for us to,
So how do we make
we
it?
don't know where things are.
How-
Okay.
yeah, How do we make it based on that if we don't know what it could be,
But no,
you know? It's,
I guess our feeling on it is that it's, we're basically doing a public improvement on town land, but, I mean, we should not be, in our opinion, doing it beyond what we can do without incurring additional costs to secure approvals, which are, you know, we have no idea whether they'd even be granted. I mean, we'd like to do what we can control in terms of,
don't know what would be granted.
no idea whether the Conservation Commission would want to grant approvals for more pavement in that area, right? So,
walkway?
I mean, I don't know, Joe, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know, I mean, it's,
Well, we certainly can condition it, that if the Conservation Department tells you you can't do it, you're no longer obligated to do it.
I understand.
Yeah.
So where are we, folks? I need a motion of some kind. It's now 20 minutes since I said, hey, we got to get off the dime and do something, folks. So I'm not sure what the pleasure of the board is, but
All right, I'm going to suggest that we approve it with the condition that they're going to put in the walkway with the 3-foot grass strip and trees, and give us an easement to do the lighting at some point in the future if the town gets somebody else to pay for the lighting or decides to pay for the lighting themselves.
and the sidewalk is based upon, what time frame do you put on that sidewalk?
I got the impression from Mr. Vaughn that they were not looking for that time,
Right.
that they
Okay.
would do it at the same time as the construction. I'm open to that, but I didn't think that's what you were suggesting.
I don't think I spoke to that at all.
Oh, okay.
So just so I understand, you're saying that we would install the sidewalk
And the
on
trees,
town-owned property in trees.
right, but lighting you would not install, you would just give the town permission to install it if it happens to stick into your land a little bit on the inside of that walkway. Just the lighting, not anything else.
The tree,
And with the understanding that if conservation did not give you permission to do the walkway, you would just do the trees.
Well, the walkway up to the point where,
Yes.
I think we're okay with everything you said, with the exception of, we would not want to be obligated to go through a separate approval process for sidewalk on town-owned property.
Right. Mr. Chair, you had suggested that perhaps that was something we could take
the town would be
on.
obligated to get whatever permit is needed from them. I don't know what permits you would need. DPW would,
How about conservation?
DPW wanted to build a sidewalk there, would they come to us?
No.
No, they would just go build a sidewalk.
Because
So I
it's
don't-
their street. Right.
I think they're talking about conservation.
It's within the town layout.
What about conservation, Jack?
Well, if it's got to go to conservation, we find out, we can find out from conservation when John Keely is back where their jurisdiction is, and if there is a point beyond which the sidewalk could not extend without conservation commission permission, it would be up to us to seek permission, since it's town property, up to us to initiate that, and if we got permission, then they could build it.
Otherwise, they'd only build it to the extent.
True.
Okay.
Right.
If we weren't able to obtain permission, if we
Correct.
weren't able to obtain.
Is that your,
That is what I meant. Thank you.
a motion to close the,
Before you close public hearing, I think there's a question on trees and how many,
Many,
where to put
yes.
them, and I think Ms. O'Neill, you might have a good idea of where the trees you thought coming in from the neighborhood, since you'd probably drive that a couple of times a day, where those trees may be located and how many you think, or? I don't know, is that appropriate, Mr. Chairman? to have a-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Would we,
You mind coming up and just kind of talking about that a little bit?
and the question would be, would they be on the 3-inch grass
Yeah,
strip
they would
or
end up being in the
elsewhere?
town's land, and the town would ultimately be responsible for maintaining them.
Right.
Okay.
So is there a standard that they use down by the other locations?
Down by the storage warehouse,
Yeah, or even, as much as I hate to admit it, Iron Mountain. They have trees there, they're horrible, they're small, and they block the sidewalk, as a matter of fact.
Well, we don't want that.
But is there a standard? However many feet that?
We don't have a set standard, and it depends on what type of tree, what's the size of the canopy. I mean, there's a couple different measures, and we also, in commercial areas, want to try to space them so you get a good spacing, you get a good number of trees, but you also don't impede on kind of the visual sign visibility and some other things, but to try to, work with both sides.
Well, I think somebody said it was
Staff.
220 feet. So, again, I guess it's kind of hard to say when I don't know the size of the trees either, right? If they're going to be Bartlett pears, they're growing up more, they're going to be more of an ornamental tree.
How about if we leave that to
We could leave that to staff to work out,
and chairman, yeah.
perhaps.
Okay,
So we have somebody to blame.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For what?
Allowing the zoning amendment.
Okay.
That's what you get paid the big money
Now,
for, Jack.
make a motion to close.
I was making a motion to close
Wait
the
a minute,
public.
let's make
Okay,
sure that the
go ahead.
applicant is finished. We don't want to cut them
Yeah,
off
I
from
mean,
speaking.
One of the limiting factors too, that there is a large sewer easement that runs through
Yep.
the property, which we would need to avoid any.
Absolutely, yes.
It's right along the edge of that long street, there's a sewer easement running right along the edge of that.
Okay, but you could put an asphalt sidewalk on.
No, they're talking about the tree planting.
Talking about any kind of.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sewer lateral is certain.
All right, well,
Can you show us where that is, or is it?
This heavy dash line here that runs along here, so it would be this area here. I mean, we do show the small boxwoods, just because I feel that, shrubs of that size aren't going to be problematic, but
They're shallow, but anything deep, you have to be very careful in that area, because there's a sewer pipe running right through there.
How-
Big one, so.
Does your
So the most
design
awkward.
show you how deep those are?
I don't know.
It's sewer, not storm drain?
Yeah, it's sewer, the
Yeah,
sanitary.
okay.
Where you're really going to get them, when we looked at this before, outside of the sewer easement and in areas that have enough width to get a good tree planting, is going to be from the corner of the front of the building toward the tree line.
You mean here?
There
And
toward
back.
there is the area that's the least impeded by sewer easement and has the width to get a good planting.
Okay.
Which,
And-
that looks good, because then as you get closer to the building, you have their
Yeah,
landscaping
you'll
plan
have their
kicks
hedge
in.
and what have you.
Yeah.
So are we limiting the trees from the corner of the building up to there where it doesn't impede?
Yeah.
And leave their landscaping down there instead of trees?
That sounds good.
That
Sounds
sounds
good.
good to me.
Okay, so, okay.
All right?
do it. Is that your motion, Barbara?
Yes,
Sorry.
that's exactly what I said.
Anything further? Okay. All righty.
Close the public
Staff-
hearing?
Well, staff's busy writing. I want to make sure she get all that down and she's comfortable with
I
it.
have all of it.
You have, okay. So, there's been a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 600. We have a
Mr. Chairman,
bunch of-
I would like to make a motion to approve the request for approval of a site plan application of BAPA Corporation for a property located at 24 Terry Avenue to permit the construction of an 11,064 square foot first and second story addition to the existing building and the associated site improvements as reflected on a plan entitled Site Plan 24 Terry Avenue, Burlington, Massachusetts, prepared by Commonwealth Engineering Incorporated, dated December 10th, 2018, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Before I go on here, staff, this is the only motion we need?
No.
to
No,
deal with-
you missed the motion above it, which you can take
Oh.
after this.
Okay.
Take it after.
I'll go back to it.
Yeah, that's
Let's
fine.
do this one.
So we're doing,
On
this
page,
motion is relative to item G.
Yes.
and Item C through G, okay.
Item G, I'll do C through F later.
Okey-doke, just to make sure everyone knows
Yes.
what we're voting on.
Thank
All right.
you.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Okay.
600.
Now I'd like to make a motion in relation to items C through F, special permits, to approve the request of BAPA Corporation for special permits pursuant to Section 6.1.1.2, expansion of a non-conforming use, Section 6.1.2.1, non-conforming structures and premises, Section 4.4.1.11, discharges from man-made structures into the wetlands, and Section 8.2.0, wetlands district of the zoning bylaws, to allow for an expansion of an existing business at 24 Terry Avenue, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit C attached as amended.
Second.
Okay, is there anything in C that's contrary to the discussions that we've had?
No.
No, okay. Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 600. Finally done.
We made the other one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
You have been very good to work with. I appreciate it. You've done everything we've asked. And I think you're going to find that this is going to be an enormous improvement, not just for the neighborhood, but for your property as well.
And when your neighbors come in, remember, you're still a neighbor. You can speak,
That's true.
and we would encourage you to do so.
Mr. Chairman, since Attorney Vaughn is still here, and I know I mentioned to kind of hold the last items, A, L, and M, since Member Raymond has not arrived, if you wanted to formally continue those at this point.
Yeah, Herb Chambers matters?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
If we could respectfully request that we continue to the March 21st, is that the?
Yes.
Yes.
March 21st hearing.
Did you want to schedule a conference with staff or a subcommittee meeting to deal with what I think you know is going to be an issue?
Be happy to do that between now and then, working through staff. So, yeah, we did circulate comments, but I don't.
Yep.
Happy to do whatever's needed to help expedite a decision at the next meeting, but we just thought with, Mr. Raymond present.
Okay, so along those lines, do we want to make it a subcommittee meeting, or do you want to make it a staff and a member or two meeting, less than a quorum? How do you want it, what's your pleasure, folks?
If we can schedule
Issue
it,
you're talking about, so I'm not.
Mr. Chairman, if we can schedule it, why don't we just make it a subcommittee
Oh.
meeting?
Okay.
If we can schedule it, why don't we make it?
As a subcommittee? Full subcommittee? Okay.
Sure, then anybody can come.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay?
Fine with that.
So we just need a motion to continue these matters.
Motion to continue.
Items K, L, and
To take 7K, 7L, and 7M, to continue those items until,
re- at
out of
the-
the request of
Out of
the
order.
applicant's attorney until
March
March
21st.
21st, 2019.
Second.
That's what she said, right? Continue and take out of.
Continue, yes.
Out of order and continue.
Out of
Out of order and continue.
Yep.
That's what I meant.
Sorry.
Aye.
Okay, so we're getting all done at once, so
Yep.
it's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 600.
Thank you.
Wow.
Enjoyable as usual. Thank you.
With a straight.
All right, where are we now? Items.
Page 12.
Page 12.
Items H and
13.
I.
12 and 13.
Yes. H and
H and
J.
J. H, I, and J.
I don't have an I.
H through J.
H through, oh, H and J,
Yes,
okay.
H, okay. And we're not taking these out of order. So, we're public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 328 and 330 Cambridge Street, Iconic Capital LLC applicant. Item I, public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 7.2.6, increasing the maximum parking space requirements of the zoning bylaws, 328 and 330 Cambridge Street, Iconic Capital applicant. And item J, public hearing, application for approval of special permit pursuant to section 4.4.1.11, discharge from man-made structures into the wetlands of the zoning bylaws, 328 and 330 Cambridge Street, Iconic Capital LLC applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, I'm Bill Proya for the applicant Iconic Capital. We have a full team here tonight. I'll let them introduce themselves as they appear, if that's okay with the board. But I would like to point out that Jeremy Lederer came from New York today. He's with Iconic Capital, so to the extent we have any questions, or the board has any questions for the applicant, it would be great to get them out tonight if you're ready for that. The other sort of piece I just want to go through here very quickly, I know you've had a full night here tonight, but we'd like to get the substance in front of you and answer questions if you have them. So just quickly, the proposal at 328 to 330 Cambridge Street is to replace the existing 17,000 square foot two-story building with a by right office building to be located at the site. It's a single-story building with drainage improvements, landscaping, and parking, as the notice was. The project is before you for site plan review, for discharge into wetlands, and special permit to exceed the maximum number of parking spaces from, I believe, 64 to 85. I think that's the number that's currently before you. And just for comparison, I found it useful to look at Lexington and Belmont, which both towns have a parking ratio of 1 to 50 for general office use, which would result in this project in those towns for an 80-space parking supply, which is similar to what we're asking. And similarly, Winchester I looked at, and they have a general office parking ratio of 1 to 200 square feet, which would yield 100 spaces for a project like this, and I thought that was interesting to think about. So in the marketplace, we find those kind of ratios very useful to make a comparison, and I hope those are useful numbers for the board to consider. Finally, I just want to point out, there's a cell lease on the site, and the cell tower lease is not being conveyed to Iconic. It's going to be retained by a third party. So as we move along, I would like to just acknowledge that and try to figure out a way to condition the approvals, if we get the approvals, to acknowledge that and try to accommodate it.
You're talking a lease. The title to the land would still go to Iconic.
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be some sort of legal mechanism, Mr. Chair, either a condominium regime potentially, or a ground lease for that space.
And you're still working on that? Is that the
Yes.
situation? Okay.
But we won't control that space, that area, and we know it's subject to existing special permits. So I was just sort of noodling about it, maybe when we get to that point, if we get to that point, to try to carve that special permit out for this. So, for example, if we came back in a few years and wanted to modify this special permit, we would want to also, we would hope we wouldn't affect the cell tower special permits.
Well, you're going to have to give them access to it as well as
Oh, no, that's,
control over the square
that's
footage.
exactly the same. The easements and the rights that they have now are going to be maintained intact. We're not disturbing those at all. So it's just, I just wanted to bring it up just so it's
So
on.
you're saying the language by which the cell tower is there is not going to change, and the people who are conveying the property to Iconic are still going to retain some, so they're going to get the rents on the tower, basically, is what
Yeah.
it amounts to.
Yeah, they're going to own the lease essentially, and
Yeah.
the rights to
And do you know how long that lease
the
runs?
site. I don't, but I can get that back to you.
Okay.
So that's my quick introduction, and if you don't have any questions at this point, I'll have Frank DePietro, the project engineer, go through the site plan.
Just for the record, because our recording secretary is doing this, watching on
Oh.
BCAT, so if we could have the names of the other people, and if it's at all difficult to spell it for us, and to figure it out from pronunciation, spell it out for us, please. Unless, do you have them all? Do you have all the names, Josh?
Maybe not.
Probably will, but we'll make sure we.
Okay, before you leave, if you make sure Josh has the names, the title, and contact information of all the appropriate people.
Yes, sir, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You want to start, or you want to let them, well, they've already started. Do you want to pick up?
I would welcome them to start with their
Okay.
presentation. We don't have a decision for tonight. It's an opening presentation
Yeah.
and try to get questions.
It's always a good thing to check to make sure your boards are upside the right way instead of down. For the record, I'm Frank DePietro. I'm a civil engineer with the BSC Group. And with me is Chris Thomas, who's a senior engineer, project manager in training almost, project manager at this point
From BSC.
from BSC. He did all the good work. I just take all the credit. So he'll talk a little bit about the drainage and the utilities in a minute. But I just wanted to give a brief overview of the site and what we're doing for existing conditions and what's changing. So this is an
When
aerial photo.
when he's full-fledged, will he get some of your neckties?
I have one engineer that works with me that borrows neckties for strange occasions. Most of them, I'm one of the few people that wear a necktie at this point in time, and they probably have much better fashion sense than I do. So, just to give credit where credit due, is Emily Durig, sitting back there in the dark coat, is the staff engineer that did all the calculations and the hard work to get this done. So, just want to give other people credit that blow my cover that I really don't do much other than come to meetings. So,
Whatever works.
that being said, so again, going to the aerial photo, that's the picture you see right there. This is Cambridge Street, across this portion. This is Chestnut Avenue. Our project site is essentially this area here. You can see that building, the white building right in that photo. There is the cell tower behind it, which you can sort of see there. And there is a small shed area right off this location. This building's about 17,500 square feet, roughly, based upon looking at the assessor's information and also based on the floor plan, what we could look at. This is about 7,500 square feet. So there's about just over 18,000 square feet of building on the site. There's about an acre of impervious area. The site has a driveway that comes off of Chestnut Avenue here, and another one that goes on to Cambridge Street, which, as you're well aware, is Route 3A, that is under the jurisdiction of the Mass DOT. So when we're done here, we get to go to see Mass DOT. The rear portion of the site, there is a, roughly about here is a zone line. This portion is RO. The front portion of the site is IG. So we do have a zoning divide on the site, and it'll become clear when we get into the site plan. There is a wetland area in the back of the site, and I'm going to switch to a simplistic plan. So this is, again, just a plan that shows the existing conditions. You see that big white building there? The cell tower is there. The little shed area is there. The gray areas are the existing pavement areas. Again, it's a little bit more than 1 acre. The wetlands you can see back here, the 20-foot no disturb zone, the 100-foot buffer zone is on the site. This line here is the zone line that runs across the site here, and then essentially goes over along this area. This building is the existing building on the, as you're looking at the left side, 336 Cambridge Street. And again, this is what's existing conditions.
Frank, so
Yes.
the white building that we see there on the left, that is not part of this property?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is not part of it.
Okay, thank you.
When the current owners bought the property, that was part of the sale. They then sold that to somebody else.
Okay, thank you.
So this piece over here, which is that lot, is not part of this development.
Thank you.
So, briefly, this is what we're proposing. Again, Chestnut Avenue is here. Cambridge Street is at this location. We're proposing an access off of Cambridge Street. We've got 6 parking spaces here. There's a one-way road, 14-foot wide, that goes to the back of the site. So that's an access in. There is an access out onto Cambridge Street that will be two-way. This will be the access out for most of the traffic coming into the site or leaving it. Again, these 6 spaces could sneak out. Chestnut Avenue, although I've seen people not do this, this is a one-way in, so there really should not be any traffic coming into Chestnut Avenue. We have a parking area that, again, this line here is that RO zone line, so we're not going into it, we're on the edge of it, we're not doing any development in there. We're proposing 85 parking spaces, which is based on what the tenant requires for this building. It's a one-story, 21,500 square foot building. We are increasing the impervious area by about a little less than half an acre. So we're going from about 1.1 to a little bit less than 1.6. I'm going to let Chris get into the drainage systems. We have filed a traffic trip generation memorandum. We've actually been out and had delayed several times for snowstorms, actually getting traffic counts. A traffic count between essentially 62 and Chestnut County Ave on Cambridge Street, and then turning moments on County Road, Chestnut Avenue, and then at the intersection of Chestnut and Cambridge Street. That data is partially in because the last storm wiped out the second day, so we're out to get some more. We'll be providing that information to you in a week or so to base what we're doing on there. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Before you go, Frank,
Sure.
where's the edge of the do not disturb zone?
Okay, so that red line, so the blue line right here is the wetland line. The 20-foot no disturb zone is the red line. It's hard to see. The 100-foot buffer is this line over in here.
Okay, the previous building at the corner was inside the 100-foot buffer. This is not.
That's correct. Part of the development here was inside that area. The existing building was a little bit, maybe 20 feet inside the end of this building. So, again, yes, it was our intent. This building is set back 26 feet from the front yard. There's a 25-foot setback, so we've pushed the building as forward as we can. We are at the edge of the 100-foot buffer zone. We have filed with Conservation, notice of intent. We had our first hearing last week. And just to sort of update, we're meeting with the Board of Health Subcommittee tomorrow morning, probably on the Board of Health agenda for the March 26th meeting, and tentatively back to the Board of Conservation Commission on March 28th.
So the answer is yes or no, is any of that building, that little corner, inside the 100-foot buffer?
No, we're probably a foot outside of it. We're close, but not inside.
Okay. All right.
Now I'll take it to Chris, who has a much more exciting discussion than I do.
Okay, we'll see on that.
I go back to the existing conditions. So currently, the developed portions of the site, all the existing parking areas, all the existing roof area, that is direct runoff that goes untreated back to the rear wetland on the property. There is a small portion, this west parking lot up front, that goes out to the municipal drainage system in Cambridge Street. The rest of the property is upland woodlands, and that is overland flow that goes to the neighboring abutting residential properties. 90% of our property is a sea soil, which has very little recharge value. So whatever is overland flow right now there's not much for recharge going back into the
Sea soil, is that SEA or the letter C?
the letter C.
Okay.
So
that's just a ABCD grade?
ABCD.
Okay.
We're in a C soil, which is a little better than a D.
Yeah, no. I wasn't sure what I heard, but thank you for clarifying that.
Under our proposed conditions for the office development, we're capturing, treating, and infiltrating as much runoff as we can from the, all the parking areas, 100% of the roof, and this little parking area out on the west side of the property. Right now, we're taking all the parking areas around the building that's being treated through deep sump catch basins to route it to water quality units into our infiltration system. The proposed building roof gets routed into the infiltration system, and it's all slowly discharged back into the wetlands through an outlet control structure. The upper parking area in the back, this is going to be overland flow to a bioretention area, which has a slow release back into the wetlands. So all of our proposed flows from the roof and the parking areas all get treated to meet the provisions of Mass DEP stormwater regulations.
So do you submit the design of the infiltration system someplace?
Do we have a design of it?
Yeah, and to whom who's going to approve that?
Conservation Commission.
Engineering, Conservation, and Board of Health,
So has that been submitted yet, do you know?
Yep.
It has, okay, good.
Okay, yeah.
and all the calculations.
So a couple of items. One, I was starting out engineering when they determined what the soil hydrologic groups are. So it's very simple. A, B, C, D, A being good soils, like you get like Cape Cod sand. B is more moderate type, maybe a gravelly. C is the stuff that does go into the ground, but more slowly. And D is like a wetland. So that, we did meet with the Conservation Commission, and we have filed the drainage calculations, the design details for the infiltration system. They had an interesting new requirement or request, and the board will probably appreciate this. A number of infiltration systems have been designed, and when we design them, we go out and do soil testing, but we never know where the system is. In this case, I think we're 10 feet off the nearest. We had some test pits here, another one here, and a couple back here. We don't have any test pits within the exact infiltration system. We've done this, and other design have done this, and the Conservation Commission has a novel idea, I think it's a good one, that before they approve something, they want to have the test pits done. There's a standard condition that says prior to construction, you have to have the Board of Health witness the test pits. And what that usually happens is, if in fact the soils are different, and that can vary all over the place, we come back to you folks, we come back to the Conservation for an amendment. So depending on the weather, snow and stuff like that, we would be looking to undertake test pits in the actual infiltration area prior to getting our final approvals, hopefully in the next 2 weeks to do that. These will be witnessed by the Board of Health. And again, I think that is actually not a bad idea. And if something happens and suddenly, like another project, we have rock 5 feet away from where we did a 10-foot deep test pit, then we'll be modifying our plans.
Is that the one we hear the jackhammering all day long?
Yes, you almost could throw, well, maybe it's a little bit hard to throw a stone from here, but yes. So, we've got landscaping shown. We'll be landscaping along this area here to provide some buffer. We're not going to hide the building, but we're going to provide some buffer, probably evergreens, 10 foot on center or something like that. There's landscaping along the front and in the rear of the site. And again, one item I think to also note, we're filling. So if you've been out to the site, you can sort of see, if you look on the right of this picture, there's a grade difference. There's a lower area on the easterly side and much higher. We're going to bring the site up to basically on this grade, as you see this driveway coming in through the site. So,
So there's that entrance is sort of a garage or something, or?
the existing entrance,
Cellar.
right, there is, there used to be contractor storages there at one point in time, and.
That's going to disappear? That-
No, well, no. So we want to come in on the same grade. We're stuck with the grade of that driveway off of Chestnut.
Yeah.
So this will be lower. There'll be a little retaining wall here. As we go up, we'll be getting back up a little bit higher, and then we have a grade up over in this area here. What makes that important is, and the site drops off as you get to the back of the site. You can sort of see that as you go around that building where the florist used to be. We're going to be filling about 3 feet here and probably filling about 5 feet here with some retaining walls. That gives us some additional depth for our infiltration system, so we can keep it above the groundwater, have adequate cover over it. We have to design it for the sea soils. We'll be bringing good fill that will be more conducive to infiltration, and that will be in it. So if you were to just look at the grades out there, you'd think would be down on the water table. We're going to be above that water table in accordance with the DEP regulations when we build that, in part because of the fill we're doing.
So will there be entrances off that driveway, which is below the main grade?
Now, this will be, again, we're having a couple of foot curb away from the building, just to keep cars away. The 14-foot roadway, and we've got about 10 feet. There will be a little bit of retaining wall, will be on grade, but there'll be retaining wall as you go back up that grade from the existing. And then we've got 5 to 8 feet along that area where we can put in those plantings.
How many levels to the building? How many floors?
There'll be one level, so this area here will essentially be 6 feet or so, or 8 feet of exposed foundation. And then the building will be on one grade, I think it's elevation 177 or something, I think? 177. Yeah. So this grade is about 176 right now, so this will be about a foot above that existing grade. And the building will be 1 story, they'll have a retaining wall / exposed foundation, that back wall, up to that 177 elevation.
So no utilities below, they'll all be above?
We will have utilities, we'll be tying into the utilities off of some existing poles. We will be relocating the conduit to the cell tower, and Mr. Lederer is in communication with Verizon, who has that, so that will happen. We'll be tying in the sanitary sewer. There's an existing manhole out here in Cambridge Street that actually this building ties into. It's right here. We'll be tying into that sanitary sewer by gravity. So there'll be no building area below that first floor slab. This will just be like a retaining wall for the front part of the building.
You said there was a driveway behind the building?
So when we come off of Chestnut Ave, we have a driveway 14 foot wide that's one way going into the site. This provides us with 2 access points into the site, and that's why we did that.
Could you use it to exit the site if you had to in an emergency?
If it's an emergency, certainly you could. It will be signed, do not enter one way, but certainly you could have an emergency here. And if there's a backup on Cambridge Street, in an emergency, people could get out Chestnut Avenue. Would have to be, whoever's running would have to regulate that, so we didn't have cars coming in, but that could be an emergency access.
Is Chestnut one way or just do not enter?
Chestnut is 2-way, the access coming out of Lukash's is right over here.
Yeah.
The bus stop is here, that's gonna be maintained. And so there are signs here that say, one way, do not enter.
You can't enter from
But it's only one
Cambridge
way for
Street.
20 feet?
Right.
Yes, I
Yeah,
mean,
okay.
you could make a left turn or a right turn coming out of here.
Okay.
Is there a bus enclosure there, or just?
Yes, there's an
Yes.
existing,
There it is.
there's an existing, but I can see it right there.
I see, okay.
There's
Thank you.
existing, so we're not gonna impact that, we're working around that. And that core,
And a payphone.
and it's, yeah, I don't know if it still works, but it's a historical, and there's that poor depressed guy waiting for the bus, I guess, so.
Is this a recent picture?
I think it's.
Or was this from 30 years ago?
October 2013.
Yeah. Phone calls were a nickel back then, Joe.
October 2013.
Take $7.
What is the expected use?
It will be an office building.
Anything further, Frank?
No, again, I think, just to reiterate, the 85 parking spaces, the waiver we're requesting to go to essentially a 4.0 is based upon the tenant requirements for the site. That they need that for their office staff and business.
They need that in order to have the choice of tenants to attract, or they already know the tenant and that tenant needs it?
My understanding is, and maybe Jeremy, that there is a tenant.
Nice to meet you. My name is Jeremy Lederer. So there is a tenant, and they have 80 employees, and they'd like to have 5 visitor spaces.
Okay.
Happy to answer questions or sit down and be quiet at your.
Okay, so Bill, am I going to you or I'm going to staff? Do you have anything more?
No.
At this point? Okay.
Thank you.
Staff?
Sure. I'll be brief because it looks like we actually have quite a few people in the room to comment, as this is one of our last items for the night. So they do have a tenant. We don't know exactly who the tenant is yet. We know some of the needs of the tenant. What we have asked is, in order to kind of understand that parking demand and the 80 employees, 80 spaces, 5 visitor, like what's the dynamic of the building? So as much as they can let us know, if they can't tell us who the tenant is, at least allow us to understand the operations of the building so we can determine if it is going to work. The other things that we've talked about is the existing bus stop that's there. If there's, as you know, that we've been working with other areas that have upgraded their bus stops, and it's been the public response has been like, oh my God, did you know there's a new bus stop now? And you're like, there's been a bus stop forever, but it's, not a nice new one. So, if we can try to work out that a little bit. We also, as it's new construction, I know we were just talking about a sidewalk, but at a minimum, I think we would request the sidewalk along the frontage of this building to be upgraded sidewalk. And then to the history of this building, this site was actually the historic Reed Hamwork site. And what ways can we try to tell that story, as well as reuse some of the, whether there's some field stones on site or in the building, if we can use that in landscaping. But also, how can we tell a story about the history of the site, whether it's, in the bus stop, we could do something, or we can have a monument, or we could have a sculpture of something that would resemble what
John
used
Sachs
to
would
be
love
there. But anyway, just really.
Bacon sculpture.
Huh?
Sculpture of bacon.
A bronze pig, we actually Googled that, but anyway.
Or perhaps a donation to the sculpture committee that could then
Sure.
commission
That
the
would-
sculpture.
But anyway, but we wanted to really tell the story, as it was one of the first industries of Burlington. It is the site. We're not going to make the whole site, but just something that we can incorporate into design, whether it's a plaque or whether it's a feature or whether it's something. But not to interfere with the operations of the office, but really just signal a little bit of the history of Burlington. And then the last, just in noting the 6 to 8 feet of foundation on the, what cardinal direction are we in? The south side of the building. There's a vegetative strip. I guess what we would just comment is from the view from Chestnut and the neighboring property, especially in that the front corner toward the middle, just to make sure that we're not just looking at exposed foundation from the neighboring property or as you're traveling on Chestnut. So whether it's landscaping across the drive or some treatment on the exposed foundation, that's just a little bit more than just literally exposed foundation. So those are our comments now that they know about, other than the foundation piece that I just didn't recognize until just now. But with that, I would be interested to hear kind of what you guys have to say, as well as the neighbors.
All righty, why don't I go to the public first, okay? It's a public hearing. Anyone from the public here to speak? So if you come up to the microphone and give your name and address and tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, I'm Dana Spratt. I'm one of the owners of 3 County Road, which is 2 houses in from Cambridge Street. My question is traffic. I did read from the documents that the traffic study has not been yet available, but I thought I heard that it would be available in a week or so.
Yep.
Will that be a document that gets uploaded to the site?
When we receive it, within a day or so, we should have it up on the website.
Have you read a traffic report before?
I can't say that I'm an expert in that, sir.
If you have
I don't know
questions-
anyone who can.
If you have questions, you can contact our office.
Although I really encourage and be looking for the parts that talk about the rush hours.
Peak hour trips.
As probably many of you already know, particularly in the evening, heading northwest up until Bellrica. It is already backed up to this location, and it's very heavy going the other direction too, trying to make the left onto 90 or 62, and 62 is itself, very slow. So this will be an impact on that traffic, particularly in the rush hours. I'd be interested in seeing what the report says. I don't know, I agree with the planning director here. I would be curious who it implies that the state agency will be the tenant here. If it's just workers coming in the morning and leaving in the evening, one thing. If it's a retail kind of where you're going to have a lot of public going in for permits or, revenue department audits or something, and you have many people coming in and out during the day, that would obviously aggravate the traffic. And I would be interested in knowing, if not the name of the agency, whether there's going to be a retail component to the site and what they're doing at that location.
We can tell you right now, there's nothing like that. It's not a public office like an RMV or a DMV or anything like that. It's strictly office, so employees and a few parking spaces for visitors. So you would expect 9 to 5 typically. I don't think there's any nighttime shifts. So it's purely office,
Yeah,
back
the floor
office work.
plan didn't look like it was going to be the governor's office or anything like that. It looked like,
No, and we understand they just work in teams. That's why there's a lot of common area and conference space there, but not a retail office operation, strictly office.
good. Well, I would be interested in following the discussion of traffic and its impact, whether modifications are necessary to the traffic patterns or some kind of traffic control. I would also say that bus stop is near and dear to my heart. I have a son-in-law that goes to that bus stop every day, so thank you. I think it's a lovely location. It's long overdue to doing something with it.
Thank you.
Two, not looking for an answer now, but if you say it has 80 employees and you want a parking space for each employee, I think the governor's encouraging carpooling and bus traffic, and since there's a bus traffic at your door, stop at your door, be prepared to talk about that.
There you go.
Not tonight.
Well, I'll just make one comment in general about office building design throughout the country, because that's what my bread and butter personally is, office buildings.
You're looking for the tenant after this one's gone.
Yeah, you just want to make sure this is going to be a long-term, good, functional use, that you're never going to have somebody come back to you and say, we don't have enough parking. I own other office buildings throughout Massachusetts, and the number one question every single tenant asks is, how many parking spots do you have? The gold standard, typical standard, where people are okay and comfortable, is 4 spots for every 1,000 square feet, which in this case would translate to 85 spots. The gold standard, which people are talking about nowadays for brand new developments, if you can achieve it, is 5 spots per 1,000. It's just the way that the office environments have been reconfigured. There's, people tend to use more cubicles, whatever's happened over the last 20 years. That's the gold standard nowadays. And anything below 4 already really raises a lot of questions. When you try to lease out a building, I have a building out in Norwood, and it's got around 3.4 spots per 1,000, and it's a question that comes up, and it becomes an uncomfortable conversation. So that's really, we just want to make sure it's a long-term, sustainable, good building that could serve the community well.
And because you're building today, I understand that, but if you talk to people in the State House, they're predicting 10 years from now, many of them won't be driving their own car, they'll be using alternate shared Ubers or whatever to get around, so.
Yeah,
I understand you need to build now based upon what the bank will finance it for you at, I understand that.
Yeah.
We don't know what 10 years from now.
I don't know. I would love nothing more than to see people use public transportation. I will say they do have room for growth. They didn't. We didn't build it out so that there's absolutely zero room for them to hire more people if they wanted. So they're, for all we know, they may have 90 in a decade from now, and so it's not perfectly tight.
You say the building could expand?
No, but what I'm saying is you could probably.
Internal.
Yeah, the actual occupancy of the building can hold more than 80 people.
Yeah, well, you got 200, divided the 2150 by 80, you got 268 square feet per person.
Right. I don't know what the legal occupancy is, but I know it's bigger. It's more than 80. I'm sure Jerry, our architect, can speak to that. But
okay.
The point is that, there is room for expansion should they ever want to in the future, and that's important as well.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Mark Camelli. I live on 18 Alma Road, which is kind of the road that goes down the back.
Behind that?
And my question is more, I understand that the water runoff is going to be cleaner. Do you anticipate the volume to grow into the wetlands or stay the same?
Do you want me to answer that now? Okay.
Do you have an additional question?
No, I represent a couple of people on the street. I'm not sure about the Trevets, but definitely the Callaghans who live at 16, is that we've seen when heavy rains or in the spring, when everything thaws, that the wetlands actually consume part of our backyard because the runoff through the stream, there were pipes here years ago, they're all clogged up. It just doesn't run off effectively.
Are they on their property, the clogged pipes?
No, I think they're on the wetlands and through, kind of goes down the back through the wood road there. It's not on their
Okay.
property.
Do we know who owns that property with the clogged pipes, staff?
No.
It's actually the wetlands, I think.
Sorry.
Well, somebody owns them.
So this site and 128 Electric and the resident, all of those sites have no stormwater control, for the most part. So there is a lot of runoff from these sites. I don't know exactly the topography looking at it here, and I'm sure that the engineers could answer the question, but, you know, and we can't speak for the site just below, between us and Elmo Road, but, or not us, but the site that's in front of
You
us.
mean this one?
But this.
Is that the one you mean?
Right, but this site, as was just described to you, they're fully putting stormwater control in the whole site so you won't have that sheet runoff that you have now. But I'm not the technical one to answer it, so if.
Yeah. Just-
Hi, I'm Bob Callahan. This month I've been at 16 Alma Road for 60 years, so I've seen quite a bit. The little access road on Chestnut Street, Chestnut is higher on Cambridge Street than it is on the rest of the road. So water runs down it, and that driveway slopes way down, so all the water runs there. Everybody that's come into there and taken possession of that property has resurfaced. 2 inches of tar for driveway parking, which has raised this level up 6 to 8 inches at least. Where does all the water go that runs down everything? It runs into our backyards, into the wetland. 20 years ago, never had water. But since then, they don't clean, there's a stream there they don't clean out. But I can see with the parking for 85 cars and the structure, in the elevator, they're going to raise this up. Where's the water going to go? It's going to go into the wetland, and it's going to make our backyards a deeper wetland. And I've seen it over the years, and wetland is wetland. They're on the edge of the wetland within a foot. Nobody seems to be concerned about that, but, you know, I know there's a buffer zone on the wetland, but they're just going to compound the situation in the wetland. And everybody on Alma Road, I can't see why all the tenants or the owners are not here, because everybody's had a problem, everybody's been up to town hall. One gentleman I can't get to my shed after certain storms. He can't get to his shed, he wanted to put 2 feet of fill and loom in his backyard. The town told him they can't do it because his yard is now considered wetland. So I just see that this is going to compound the problem of the wetland and raising the water table. Unless they want to do something about that brook or stream, clean it out and clean the pipe that it's supposed to flow into.
Okay, thank you. That's Frank. You have some comments now, and you may want to deal with more of it later? Okay.
I could yell real loud, but I'd rather listen to these.
Yes, sure.
Okay, my name is Malcolm Trevette. I live at 2 Alma Road. I've been there for about 40 years, and I know the traffic patterns, believe me. One thing that's not really been described, and that is the road, Chestnut Avenue, is just good enough for 2 cars. We have the MBTA there. We have 2 buses in the morning, and it's constant flow on a regular schedule. And they sit right up near the bus stop, and when they get ready to leave, they're making a left on 3A. Now, the traffic pattern has already been described in the morning. It is backed up big time. And it's also backed up big time when they come home. So you got buses on the road, on Chestnut Avenue, they're making a left onto oncoming traffic, and then you've got a school bus stop on Alma Road, And there's no place to walk on the on Chestnut Avenue because there's no sidewalk. And we're getting more and more pedestrian traffic. Best thing I could do to start with is put a damn sidewalk up there. We do need it. My son was hit on that damn road. He went flying through the air. So I am very much in favor of a sidewalk to begin with, before we even start anything else. But this is going to be a traffic nightmare up there. There's either going to have to be a cop up there to regulate the traffic, or some type of stoplight or whatever, but you just have no idea, especially when the people coming out on holidays from Lakacious Bakery or the florist. They're making a right turn on the Chestnut Avenue, they're making a left turn on the Chestnut Avenue, then they're trying to get on the 3A. Yeah, right, and now we're going to have additional? You know, if they had, I'm sorry, the other place didn't go in first. But that's my concern, is the traffic. The traffic is going to be absolutely horrendous, especially when you get the kids going to school. Bus driver's going down there. He's going to be going into the traffic too. And I think it's just going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a dangerous situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Hey, I'm Michael Murray Jr. I'm here with my father, Michael Murray Sr., lives at 340 Cambridge Street, which is the direct abutting property here along Cambridge Street, and abuts the rear of this property. We have a couple questions.
Is it that property there?
No, one over.
No,
That one?
one over, yeah, and it goes back. This is the rear of my father's property line here. So a couple questions before I get into the buffer. The floor plan, which I don't know if they have it here, showed a stairwell in the building, but they said it was 1 story. So I wonder if they could clarify why that stairwell is there?
Sure thing. I'll introduce Jerry Seaman.
No, go ahead.
Jerry Seaman is the architect, Ross Seaman Architect.
Yes, hi. Excuse me, that is it's a very tiny little room that is currently being anticipated for the sprinkler valve. And in order to give the fire department access to the sprinkler valve, it's right down in that corner there, because that's where the water is going to be coming into the building. So we have an at-grade access for the fire department to get into the building there. And then in order to connect the room into the rest of the building, it's about 4 feet down. I've got a small stairway going up to a quarter. So it's a...
So it's a 4-foot elevation difference?
Approximately, yeah.
And how many square feet is that space?
Pardon me?
How many square feet is
About
that?
150 square feet. It's just a utility room. If the site weren't a kind of a slightly split level site, that room would be at the same grade as the rest of the floor. So we put it down there so that the fire department would have easy access from the exterior directly in, and we did want to make sure that there was access from the rest of the building into that room, so it's a minor stairway within.
So if it's 150 square feet, is it going to be anything more than the sprinkler connection? You're going to have the electric
Well, the electric
boxes
room,
there?
the mechanical rooms, those are
Everything else, so,
up on the primary level.
okay. Thank you.
Makes sense?
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah, as long as that's included in their square footage calculations, okay. The next question that I have, existing now, grab your boards here if you don't mind. There's a shed existing, and I believe that the application says that it's to be removed, but the site plan does not note that, so I just want to confirm that that will be removed. Okay.
On the site plan, what you're probably seeing is the conditions under, so we didn't take that off, but it is gonna be gone.
So then the bigger concern that we have is really here. This doesn't show the actual dash line, but there's the buffer zone requirement of the 20% of the depth of the lot from the industrial zone to the residential zone, which they have along this lot line here. and I believe it's 45.4 feet or 45 feet, give or take, which I'm gonna assume that the calculation is right for the average depth of the lot, but it doesn't seem to continue from this point.
It's not, not to cut you off, but that parcel is actually zoned IG. If that,
My father's lot is residential,
Oh.
the corner of the lot goes to right there, in which case there should be a bubble of the zone there as well. And then, so that's one part of the buffer zone. The other question that we have is, I know it's on their lot, but it's still adjoining residential property, and they're showing no buffer.
Yep. Good question.
So those are our concerns as far as that. We're not really opposed to the site. I think it'll clean up the site, but those issues, I think, need to be raised and addressed.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I noticed, Frank and Bill, you've been taking copious notes, and you know those things that we'll be looking to address. Some of them you may want to address with staff between now and the next meeting. Others you may need to address at the continued public hearing. Any questions about any of this that's come up?
No, I think we understand the issues.
Okay.
More of the drainage will be fleshed out with the Conservation Commission as well, so I would encourage people to come to that meeting as well. I think there'll be a lot of discussion of drainage there, so it would be helpful to have their comments there as well.
One of the notes I had back from Frank when you and Chris were talking was, is any of your surface or sheet flow going off your property? And is that, and I always talk rate and volume when we deal with that, could you expand on that a little bit?
And with that, when you're describing it, can you kind of outline the general grades and direction of flow? I'm trying to understand the neighbors' concerns, and if you can help me
So,
with that, that'd be great.
looking at the existing conditions, there's really three areas, general areas where water flows. Right now, water flows out onto, let me use this plan. I'm gonna flip to that one. This is the existing conditions. So right now, an area of water flows out onto Cambridge Street. And as you probably heard before in other projects, Mass DOT, no water flows into their system from outside of their right-of-way. So, we'll be going there. What we're doing there is we're redirecting the flow, so we've got a high point right, probably 10 feet back or so from the edge of the roadway. That little bit of high point towards Cambridge Street will flow it out onto Cambridge Street. That is something like about a 75% reduction in the water flowing off the site onto Cambridge Street. That's a drainage improvement for Cambridge Street. There is a portion of the site, high point over here, that water flows off into the abutting property. We're not changing that. We are taking out the shed, but that flows down toward the wetland area. That area up here does not change, because, again, it's in the residential area, we're not doing any work out in that area. The bulk of the site flows back to this wetland area that we've been talking about, to the rear of the site, or the northeast corner of the site. And
that site is what zone?
so it's flowing off of the IG zone into the residential zone with the wetland.
Which you own?
Which we own, yes.
Okay.
And so there is,
But now the question is, from your RO piece, where does it flow?
I understand, I haven't followed it up, but look at the
Okay.
question. With the topo, it sort of flows off, there's like a stream channel, very shallow stream, that flows off sort of in this direction. Where it goes off the site, I haven't walked it, I don't know where that is. We're not changing that. What we are doing on the site, besides collecting the water from the pavement, that it doesn't happen, right? The water right now just falls off untreated. So we're treating the water, collecting it. We have an infiltration system here. And over the course of the design storm, we look at a 2-year design storm, a 10-year, a 25, and a 100-year storm. So as you go through that,
Question came up the other day, are you using the NOAA standards for your,
We are using the original
Okay.
NOAA standard, which is what DEP requires at this point.
You're
in
using the
time.
7-foot, not 11-foot for 100-year storm.
It was about 6.5 versus like 8 inches for the 100-year storm is the difference based on the different
Okay.
studies. The original study that's referenced in the DEP regulations uses information back from 1970. That's what we use, that's what their guidance still continues. More recent studies show that for the higher frequency storms, the water falling is higher. For the normal storm at 10-year or less, the rainfall is about the same as you go over the years. So, again, we pretty much notice that when it rains, there's more rain coming down. Now, over time, the more rain is falling over. But for the design storms, we're using the DEP standard because that's the standard we're held to at this point in time. So, we've reduced the flow coming out here. In this infiltration area where we pick up the roof, and pretty much this area here, and this sort of bioretention area, we're reducing the runoff from the site. It varies storm by storm. So for a 2-year storm, we're reducing the runoff by about 50%. When you get up to the 100-year storm, we're reducing the peak volume 2%, and that reduction is below the existing conditions right now. So,
I'm sorry, would you repeat that last, for
Sure.
the 100-year storm, you're doing what?
so for a 100-year storm, the peak flow rate off the site has been reduced by about 2%. So,
And that flow rate is calculated at the DEP standard, which we know is lower than what actually happens.
right, but again,
So using the more realistic numbers, it won't be decreasing by 2, it'll be increasing by something more than that.
would have to look at that and run the number, but again, I think we'd have a reduction anyways,
right.
because of overall for the design. We're looking at a model, and basically the standards we're using are to have a uniform way of looking at runoff. We're not predicting an exact 100-year storm or a 10-year storm. It is a model that we're looking at based upon conditions that have been accepted scientifically in standard engineering practice since the 1970s. We certainly can use a different number and run that, again, that volume through there if you'd like. This infiltration gets eventually into the wetlands. It may take a longer period of time, but all the water that flows on the site gets into that wetland area. We're not
Even what you're
evaporating and disappearing.
Even what you're percolating?
Yes, it takes longer, so, the runoff that runs into this system, that there was some discussion at the Conservation Commission that they were concerned about, by infiltrating, are we starving the wetlands? And there was some serious discussion about that. We have a portion that is treated and runs off directly into the wetlands, so they're getting some water right away into the wetlands. The bulk of the site goes into this infiltration, and again, we haven't got the actual percolability or the flow, hydraulic flow through the soils. It's probably in a matter of hours or half a day or something for the water to flow from here to get into the wetland. But all the water that falls on the site from whatever storm gets into the wetland eventually, because that's where the water direction flows on this site.
What's the difference in rate that people are experiencing today versus the rate that they will experience with this system in place? To answer directly kind of
Okay,
the
so,
neighbor's concern.
The peak flow rates off the site are going to be less,
What the total volume is going to be?
the same. I mean, if you
Okay.
look at a 15-minute time frame, then no, there's water stuck in this infiltration. If you look at a 12 or 15-hour time frame, the water's going to get into the wetlands. I can't tell you what that 12 or if it's 12 or 15 or 8 or 20 hours. That depends on how fast the water flows through the soil into the wetlands.
So this fancy infiltration system is really a detention system,
Yep.
not a retention system.
Right, it does two things. One is
And treatment.
during, it's a treatment system during, say, the summertime, when the water table is lower, it will actually recharge the groundwater
And not go into the,
and have some less water going in. It will, instead
Okay.
of going in on the surface, it's going to go down, 5 feet or 2 feet or whatever it is, and it will in fact recharge, which is the basis. We're going into the soil, it's not a direct runoff. In the springtime, we're still going to have 2 to 4 feet of clearance from that water table. So it's still going to flow down, but instead of flowing down 5 or 6 feet. In the middle of August, it might flow down 2 or 3 or 4 feet before it hits that water table and then stops flowing out into the wetlands. So the water will still get to the wetlands, it'll still be wet in the wetlands. It is in fact a detention system, yes, but it does flow into, like anything, it flows into the area we're talking about. You know, detention system empties out over a certain time frame. We're just holding back the water. Here we're using natural detention, if you will. It's going into the soil, and it will certainly keep the wetland plants and other areas and the plants on the edge here wet during the, when it's infiltrating.
You're increasing the pervious surface by a half acre?
Yes, just under half acre.
So it's an increase in pervious surface. We're losing green space.
But if you're, yeah, so if you're increasing the pervious surface, there is less natural percolation, you're capturing it and then sending it to the wetlands,
We're
treating it.
We're treating it and then infiltrating into the ground, a good part of that. So the increase in runoff, because we have a half acre or a little bit less than that, of new impervious area, we're holding it, we're putting it into the ground after it's treated, which is what you typically do in any infiltration system. And here, you know, we're maybe 80 or 100 feet away from the wetlands, so it will take some time for the water that goes into the system to flow through the ground to get into the wetland area. So again, you could look at this as a kind of detention system, because the increase in runoff volume is being detained and released slowly over a longer period of time.
Okay, I see you, Mr. Callahan, I'll get to you. So if you've increased the impervious surface, the difference between post-build and pre-build, especially where you're paving away from the back, that water previously percolated into the ground,
Correct?
and it's not percolating into the ground now, proposed post-build, out towards Chestnut and Cambridge Street.
This area here is where it's going into Cambridge Street now. That's less area, so there's a reduction in the flow in that area. The increase in impervious area is in the back of the site.
I'm not worried about the
Okay.
state. I'm worried about, since you're sending less out onto Chestnut Street, you're keeping more on site, and then it's moving on the front part, closer to Chestnut and Cambridge. That water is moving towards the back and going into the detention system, and then going into the wetlands, which before it went out onto Cambridge Street.
We're infiltrating that into the ground, so.
We're increasing the volume.
But you told me what you infiltrate into the ground is eventually making it to the wetlands.
So, yes, so if
So
you would.
more is going to the wetlands then?
There's a certain amount of rainfall that gets on the site, and I guess what I want to differentiate is that the peak flow rate, that's one of the items we have to look at under the Wetland Protection Act.
You've been to enough meetings with me, and I hate peak flow. You know, peak flow simply says the highest rate it's going at is not increased, but it's going longer at that peak flow somewhere. So the total volume sometimes increases.
Yes, so the two standards we have under the Wetland Protection Act is no increase, and under the DEP stormwater regulation, is no increase in peak flow, and I said no increase in the volume that you're discharging overall. So what we have, again, we've addressed, I think, the peak flow, and I would agree, if you have a peak flow at 10 hours, where before it was 1 hour, that's an issue with flooding. That's not the case here, based on the model we have. That would be an hour or something like that, and less going into the wetlands.
So how many gallons over what period of time that was going into Cambridge Street is not because DEP or the state is giving you a hard time?
I will look at, I'll give you that answer the next
Okay.
time I get it. I don't have that off the top of my head. We can certainly look at that and calculate that.
And then ultimately, where does it go? And of course, the neighbors are concerned, you know, is it their yard, where it goes? So we need to do
Volume is
that.
increasing. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to, but, you know,
That's a
does it
problem.
percolate and never make it off the site? We don't know. He's got to study that for us. Okay, Mr. Callahan's been patient. Would somebody get him a microphone, please?
I just thought it was illegal to put any water into a wetland. I thought wetlands were exclusive, they couldn't be touched. You're telling me that this man wants to pump or filter water into the wetland? I don't care what process he's using, he's fooling or treating rainwater, so he's gonna put it into the wetland, which I think is illegal. Number
That question
two,
is gonna be
water
better
goes
for
where
the-
water wants to go. The runoff off the thing is gonna be
Yeah,
ridiculous.
That question will be better asked at the Conservation Commission. They have not only a better understanding, but jurisdiction over that.
You're telling me it's legal that he could put water into a wetland? I thought that was totally illegal. You can't put more water into a wetland. That's, used to be sacred, I don't know.
I don't know the exact answer to your question, but I think you will get a better answer from the Conservation Commission.
I have a water question.
A lot of questions?
Water question, H2O. Frank, you were saying that you're building this new structure, and part of the structure is going to be in the fill area, is that correct? Did I understand
There
that
will
right?
be some fill along this area here under the building.
Yeah, no, your structure, your
Oh, I'm sorry, over here, this
structure
area, okay, yes,
in the corner.
yes.
Almost all of it will be in the filled-in area or not?
It will vary, so we've got 2 foot of cover over the top of the infiltration system, so cars can drive over it. And the system's about 2 foot? About 3 feet. 3 feet, okay, so we've got, from the proposed grade, there's 2 foot, and then we go down to the bottom of the system is 3 foot below that. So 5 foot below the top of the grade in this area here is the bottom of our system.
Okay, it's not a bioretention system?
No,
it's a
there's a,
sealed system?
that's a sealed system.
Okay.
Probably those chambers and stuff like that, that we make sure nowadays hold the cars over them, unlike another project a while back.
Good idea. Now, I just wanted to make sure there was no water that would be leaking out through the fill
No,
directly.
this
into
will be going into the ground. It won't be breaking out of the slopes or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Joe? Not yet, okay.
I have some questions. Kristen, according to our parking requirements, how many parking spaces are allowed for the size building?
Around 65. I mean, there's a range, but.
Around 65, and they're looking for 85? Okay, okay. Has the Historical Society expressed any interest in anything that's in this building that could be saved or used?
They have triggered the demo delay.
Okay.
And they are meeting with the Historic Commission at some point. I don't know. Do you have that set up yet?
We're just waiting for them to notify us when the hearing will be.
Okay.
Yeah, the last owner of the building did do substantial work and demolition within the building. I think the Historic Commission did meet with them before that, but just wanted to
Okay.
note it. I'm
I just
not
wanted to
sure
make sure
how
that
much
they
is
were
left inside
involved.
right now. Yep, they are involved right now.
I know that we do not have design review of the building because this is not in the overlay, but it is a charming-looking building, and I just wanted to express my hope that the new building will also be perhaps colonial in nature and have some charm, aesthetic charm, rather than just be a very industrial-looking building. And I know I don't have the right to demand that. I'm just saying it would be nice. I am very concerned about flooding for the neighbors. As someone who lives next to wetlands, I sympathize with their situation, and it looks to me like this is going to have a negative impact on their property, and I'm very concerned about that. So those are my areas of concern right now. Thank you.
Carol?
Would you like,
I would love to hear the department reports.
great. Inspector of Buildings are favorable with conditions.
Have you had a chance to review these departments? You have, okay.
Okay. The 14-foot one-way driveway along the easterly side be marked posted no parking and/or fire lane. And that was the building. DPW looks to be
Favorable with conditions.
Favorable.
Have you reviewed the conditions? Is anything unusual in there, Bill?
No.
I think they're typical. And then fire department is favorable with conditions. The fire sprinkler system is to be reviewed and approved by the fire department. The alarm system is to be reviewed and approved. Layout and placement of fire hydrant is to be reviewed with fire, and dumpster permit is required per 527 CMR 1.00, and a Knox box is required. And that's it for comments thus far.
Any non-departmental comments from you, Carol?
No, not at this
Okay.
moment. I think they've all been,
Bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would agree with Barbara over there with regard to the increase in impervious, increasing the flow as you go further into the neighborhood there. A couple things I was looking at, of the buffer between the two sites heading northeast. It looks like the green buffer zone there, you've got it, that's in their neighbor's area, so there's no...
Talking in between there?
Between there, yeah.
that's,
It's just grass, so again, we're looking lot to lot, like we've seen in other places where we've tried to put some green buffer there, so with the layout here, it doesn't look like it allows that with the driveway going up. Which goes to my second point about the traffic. You know, the folks here that live in the area, and I go by there, you know, many times during the week, and then it's just, there's no way that you'll be able to take a left turn out of there if you get an opening on Cambridge Street. You know, I think we've got to look at traffic flow in that area, thinking about one-ways coming in, one-ways coming out, 85 cars. I'm thinking about this kind of without the 85. I say what you do is you come in, you make that a right-hand turn only. You can take a right-hand turn in. There's no left turn coming out. You do a one-way around the building and you come out on Chestnut Street, but 85 cars on Chestnut Street doesn't work either. So then I kind of think back, how does it work with that? Big building, more impervious surface, increased water flow, traffic that it's just, it won't work. So then you kind of look at what works for the site in general, so I kind of step up a little bit. And I think what you got to do is maybe kind of step back a little bit and kind of rethink the site there and what will work there. Yeah, there's a two-way on Chestnut, but if I'm thinking the only way it's going to work is that the only way to take a left is to go up Chestnut and then go down 62 and then take a left on, right there. That's the way the traffic flow has got to go for this one, without cheating it and coming out and then taking a right and then trying to take a left down, out of Chestnut. We'll call it Lower Chestnut, right?
and to get off of Chestnut onto Wilmington Road is
Oh, you
problematic.
can't take that, you
is-
can't
is-
take that left.
Is problematic because,
In the mornings, you can't do it. It's
and
backed up all the way
it's
to.
backed up all the way past Pine.
Yeah,
to-
oh,
to
way
Pine
past
Glen,
Pine Glen, yeah.
And sometimes all the way to my street,
Yeah,
which is,
yeah.
which is a mile from that light. I
It
live
is,
a mile
it
from that
is,
light.
it is. It's back way back there up to where you live, and it's a real tough spot. So there's a lot of things, a lot of concerns I have about this, how you can actually make it work with the building size and the number of people that are going to be a 9 to 5 type of building. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie?
Sure. Number one, your proposed tenant, is it a 9 to 5? It is a 9 to 5 business?
Yes.
Okay.
Strictly
And you-
office.
So it's going to have a peak 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, maybe more than that, it's going to back
Yeah,
up.
to have a
while.
lot more than that.
And also, will there be, the tenant that you're looking at right now, does he need all 80 parking spaces? Because if he doesn't, and we somehow or another figured out how to do this, hopefully, for you, we could do what we've done before, and that is give you 80 parking spaces, but ask you not to build them all. That decreases the impervious. You still have permission to build them, but they're just not built until you need them.
Hold them in reserve.
Hold in reserve, and that maybe helps with the water problem too at the moment. And I assume that you're going to look for a tenant with a long lease, I would hope, because you're saying you're in that business. So maybe those parking spaces would never be built. Is that a possibility? Possibility.
We'll go back and ask the
Okay.
tenant.
Okay.
With this feedback to make sure that we're giving you complete and full, accurate, current information.
All right.
Definitely will do that.
Have active construction, we usually grant them. In this case, we did
Carol
ask,
just observed that we're no longer on BCAT.
Yeah, why did VCAT turn us off?
Because they don't like us?
I don't know, but I'm wondering if the audio is still there.
It may very well be, I don't know.
I don't think so.
Same reason everyone else does it.
What is it?
So what do you need from us on 5 Dartmouth Road?
I just need you
Just
to
a
release
yes.
it.
Release the lot?
Release it subject to,
We sign something, we just tell you release it.
No, we signed.
you sign something.
Okay, do we have that piece of paper to sign?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hold-
Moving things along?
yes.
And has engineering reviewed whether we have enough money to do, oh yeah, no,
Hold on,
we have
hold on,
houses.
Hold on,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
call VCAT.
Call BCAT? Oh,
Yeah, ask them why they shut us off before we were done.
Are we done with that, or?
they said we're too noisy.
No, anyway, to answer Ernie's questions, though, you have 2 years. They should ask for an extension.
Right.
If there's active construction, we usually
Okay,
extend.
just check.
Right,
Jen-
okay.
We should, if you had an extension in front of you, I would recommend you say, please provide a timeline for the rest of the completion of construction.
Okay.
And then when they do that, you could extend it subject to receiving that, then we
Right,
file.
I told them that's what we typically do, unless it's the subdivision construction's then they haven't finished it. And then on occasion, I think 2 or 3 that I can remember, we actually declared them in default and
Yes.
took the money to finish them.
Well, I mean, if things just stop for a long, then at that point, then you decide if you're gonna rescind the approval, if you're gonna declare it in default, take that, but we're not at that point yet. But we
Okay.
are at a point where I think there's been a lot of other reasons that may be outside of them with, although they said it wasn't gas, right? They didn't
They said
have
it
a gas
wasn't.
hookup issue, it was.
Something else, I forget.
Right, they already have, they have gas.
Right, but
no, I think-
meaning that you have a lot of people,
Said something about electric or something.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
know.
right, it was.
getting transformers right now is taking a long time.
Okay.
Anyway, where was I going with this? So to that question, when is it up? Is it up soon? It's soon?
Might be, I don't.
Fall 2016.
Just keep it in mind.
Anyway, I would
Thank you.
recommend that you release this release it, but subject to final release after staff inspection.
So, so moved.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 6-0-0.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just one thing of a discussion item, because I think we're at the end of our agenda. I just wanted to tell the board that the Sculpture Park Committee met and discussed what our meeting entailed, and they are unanimously in favor of coming under the wing of the planning board. So we are, the Sculpture Park Committee. So we are working on a document that we will then present to you with our mission and who will be on and all of those details that we talked about. We're not ready to bring that to you tonight, but it will be coming soon.
Is there anything the board has to do between now and then?
No.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a question, I have a
Out of the other one, actually.
question, actually. There was an old gas station down where the hockey store is down there now. Used to be a Texaco or something years ago, years and years ago.
Ned's?
Meanings?
Down near Manion's, yep.
Closer towards Bedford?
So if you just pass the entrance into Dunkin' Donuts and the Manion's, right, to that entrance on the left,
Going down
it's literally right after that on the left-hand side,
Before Doyle's?
before Doyle's.
Okay.
All right, so it-
Was that either Ned's or Peaches?
Peaches, it
Yeah,
was Peaches.
Is it still a gas station?
No.
Well, so they abandoned the gas pumps years ago. They haven't had gas pumps there in forever. And I just drove by there yesterday, I saw gas pumps. All new gas pumps.
Where?
Now, what is it?
I don't know.
Strip mall, past the...
Just past the new strip mall on the left side.
Yeah.
So not, so,
For years, it was just a mechanic, they ran it as a mechanic.
No, not the mobile, it's the
no,
one,
I know, not the mobile, the one
the other
before.
one. So we used to get
Way before mobile on the left.
Texaco, maybe it was.
Texaco, it was a Texaco years ago.
We could reach out to the building department.
That was,
Peach was the one that owned it, I think it was
yeah,
Peach. yeah.
Bob Peach, I
Yeah.
forget his first name.
I thought it was Bob Peach.
If
yeah.
they, it's a separate use. You can't just, if it's been an auto body and they had a gas station,
It was an auto,
you
it was an
can't
auto
just put a
repair
gas
shop.
station in it.
Right. So I think it was a gas station probably 35
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago,
yeah.
40 years, whatever, but it hasn't been a gas station in a lot of years.
We can look into that, we can reach out to the building
But I
department.
drove by there, there's all new gas pumps out there.
Is it a new user too?
It looks like all new, I don't even know, I didn't even see
You
the
see a
name.
brand on the pumps?
I didn't look, I drove by and I'm like, are those gas pumps out there? They look like all brand new,
Yeah,
a bunch of new gas pumps out there.
I would agree.
All right.
Yeah, the Pure Hockey right there has the ice rink that's inside that they didn't have before, so I know that we had to approve for Pure Hockey,
They are not using real ice chillers, like a plastic material.
on one rink they are, but on the other one's an ice rink.
Oh.
Yeah. There's one ice and there's one plastic.
What's the one,
The one on the right's plastic, the one on the left's ice.
and it wasn't ice before?
They never had any in there before.
Oh,
They didn't have any rinks before.
all I know is, we said, oh, is it gonna have the stuff they had? And they said, no, it's gonna be, we'll check.
Yep. Thank you.
Motion
Yeah,
to adjourn?
Yes, second.
there weren't any in the original.
Moved in second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600.
Same thing we can change.